If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 76, Time Skip 1. Several years have passed since the snowfall in Seimeigakure, and there have been some changes in the village and the world, some where I decided to intervene subtly or not. Firstly, Neji was born and officially joined the village. Tsunade is still amazed at the idea that I really created a human being in body and soul in the laboratory. Although I shared with her some data about what a Jigai is, she still struggles to digest that fact. With Neji, it's like having a super assistant who is also your teenage daughter, but of the rarest and hardest to find type, causing no trouble due to crazy hormones and being very obedient and sensible. She gets along great with everyone, and her personality has evolved enough to start showing emotions. When she showed a bit of embarrassment and called Pakura and Ringo mom, the expressions on their faces were priceless. In fact, I tried to take a sneaky photo at that moment, but Seimeikage skewered the camera with kaiba and fried it with a discharge, while Pakura reduced the remains to ashes. Yes, their synchronization has improved a lot over time, and they really treat each other like lifelong sisters, including the small, harmless fights between them. Sometimes they don't even take turns and just go all out. We moved around different parts of the world by displacing the Sky Island, causing more confusion as people saw us and reported our appearance in major villages. After all, there were no reports at the borders. We were in one place one day and another the next week, leaving no traces between the 2 points. Something completely unexpected happened one morning before breakfast. Tonery appeared in front of me. On my Sky Island. He demanded that I hand over all the high-purity Byakugan I had and submit to him, saying he would reluctantly take me as his subordinate despite being inferior. So, remembering what he did in the movie, or what I could remember, at least, I let Neji kill him while making breakfast for everyone. My assistant has high fighting capabilities, and no one was surprised by that. They were more amazed by the fact that someone was living on the moon. I learned that Seimeigakure still tried to kidnap Hinata. I can have an idea of why, but they really didn't think the plan through. Naturally, they were deceived and only managed to obtain Neji's father's corpse. They were so frustrated that they ended up asking for more artificial Byakugan, which, by the way, are starting not to be as secret as Kumo would like, as they want to maintain exclusivity as much as possible. I still made some visits to Konoha. One winter day, I felt like having a good barbecue, and as we were near the village, I took everyone to eat at the best place in the Akimichi clan. Tsunade, Shizuan, and Anko had to disguise themselves to avoid problems, and to my surprise, there was no root trying to make a move. After we finished eating, the group split into pairs or groups to explore at their leisure, and I went on my own to walk off the food. People still look at me strangely, but since I've been around here several times, they're losing the novelty. When passing near one of the playgrounds, I heard crying and saw the famous scene of Hinata being called a monster by 3 kids. Unconsciously, I was behind the 3 kids, projecting a long shadow over them that silenced them, causing them to turn around slowly, their faces turning pale for seconds as they lifted their heads to see me completely. "Do you have a problem with monsters?" I asked in a deep voice as I bent at the waist to appear more threatening. I used my powers superficially to make my eyes crackle with electricity. Nothing really strong, but very flashy and noisy. "Now is when you run!" I shouted at them while condensing a thunderbolt in my hand the size of a spear. Well, the kids chose Plan D and fainted with soiled pants right there. Did I go too far? No, it's okay to give a good scare to those who bully. "Are you okay, little one?" I said, doing a 180-degree turn in my attitude. I knelt down, took out a handkerchief, and gently wiped the tears on Hinata's cheeks. She didn't move away, although I think it's more due to the shock of my performance. "Cheer up, you have beautiful eyes, and no one can tell you otherwise." Hinata stared at me without reacting so fixedly that even I felt uncomfortable. "Do you want an apple?" I took out one of my apples, and she took it with her tiny hands by reflex. But she still had a dazed face as she raised her head to look at me and lowered it again to see the apple she was holding. "It's normal, I'm huge compared to her. I mean, I don't even reach her knee height, and I'm sure she didn't know that people could be so tall. I'm Enel, from the village of Seimeigakure. What's your name?" I asked, pointing to my headband on my thigh despite knowing the answer. "Hinata Hyuga," she replied, finally returning to normal, and her face turned red. It's perfectly normal, she always had a shy personality, and it didn't alarm me. There's no chance of the same thing happening as with Kurotsuki, right? Well, Hinata, do you need me to accompany you home? Seeing her shake her head, I nodded and patted her head to comfort her from the scare. Be careful and don't go out alone again, it's dangerous, okay? After she mumbled an affirmative response, I stood up and left. My mantra tells me that there are at least 2 ninjas nearby watching her, probably her supposed guardians, whom I want to kick in the rear because they didn't prevent their beloved princess from being bullied. There is no difference between those who bully and those who see it and do nothing to confront it. My good mood is totally ruined. Those idiots are lucky to be only small children, or I would really make them regret their actions. On another note, I continued passing by the Uchiha complex. For Fugaku and Suzuki, yes, I officially met the little Uchiha. I am the visitor who brings the incredible apples with which Mikoto makes the best cake in the world the next day. As for Itaki, let's say he glares at me every time Suzuki pays attention to me for things like asking why I'm so big instead of playing with his beloved older brother. While I'm entertaining Suzuki and talking to Mikoto, I'm reflecting on why Naruto didn't appear to save Hinata. The only thing I can think of is that, seeing an adult helping her out of the situation, he believed that his intervention was no longer needed. Or maybe he got scared when he saw me. Being a Jinchuriki in Konoha really makes everything tougher, I suppose. Mito didn't have that problem due to her original identity, and even Kushina had her cards to play if it was really necessary, but Naruto has none of that. This reminds me of a small matter from a year ago when my village got its own Jinchuriki overnight. Chapter 77, Time Skip 2. It all started when I was leaving Konoha after one of the visits to Mikoto, where I saw Naruto being kicked out of a fruit shop when he was just looking at some good-looking watermelons. I began to think about the other tailed beasts and how foolish Hashirama was to capture them and distribute them as if they were deterrent weapons. Then, a small doubt crossed my mind. The tailed beasts were distributed to the major villages because they paid a high price for them, but how could Takigakure secure Kome when its strength is a joke? Trust in the hero's water? I highly doubt it. Strategic position? No one is interested in them. Money and resources? They seem to be almost as poor as Seimeigakure and don't even have a tenth of its population, only with a better environment to be self-sufficient. So, I went to look for the only person who might know about it and was within my reach, Tsunade. And the information I got left me completely speechless. I explained my doubt, and when I saw her making a grimace as if remembering something embarrassing, I joked, saying it wasn't possible that Hashirama gave a tailed beast to settle some gambling debts or something, right? Tsunade remained silent and turned her head to look away. She turned her head. For someone like her, that's basically tacitly confirming that what I said is correct. I couldn't believe it. I knew Tsunade inherited the bad habit of gambling from her grandfather along with his bad luck, but really? How big must Hashirama's gambling debt have been for Konoha to decide that using a tailed beast to settle it was more profitable than using money, resources, or land? Then I remembered Fu, the Seven Tails Jinchuriki and the only one with the ability to fly. Her life in Takigakure and how it ended at the hands of Akatsuki. Seimeigakure, as the best ninja village in the world, self-proclaimed, how could we allow ourselves not to have our own Jinchuriki? Absurd. So I kidnapped, rescued Fu from the evil clutches of Takigakure in a gesture of pure altruism and justice. My justice. As hidden as they think their village is in the waterfall, it's visible for kilometers from the sky. Especially when you're looking for a gigantic tree from which hero's water is extracted every 100 years, from which I tore off several branches to study them later. It took about 20 seconds to locate and rescue Fu using my speed, while it took Takigakure a week to realize she was missing. So yes, I believe the moral compass is very in my favor in this case. Fu was still small, about 3 years younger than Haku, so when she realized that she went from being surrounded by people who beat her and looked at her badly to living in an incredible place made of clouds, with adorable cloud foxes whose tongues tickled her cheeks, lots of delicious food until she was full, and people who treated her well, it didn't take long for her to call the village her home and start smiling. Really smiling. Believe me when I say that when I saw Fu's state upon meeting her, I had serious thoughts of turning Takigakure into the second Kusagakure. The village is literally built on and surrounded by water, so the power of the attack would multiply immensely. But unlike Kusagakure, I know that the children of Takigakure are genuinely innocent, and not all of them would mistreat Fu in the future. That was the only thing that saved them. If they really try something funny, maybe they won't need that old tree they like so much anymore. The reactions of Pakura, Tsunade, and Shizune when they discovered the true identity of the girl were, they stared at me in shock. So when I told them what I saw when I took her out and with the verification of the medical duo, they supported my decision to take her away from there. We didn't even treat her differently for being a Jinchuriki, I just made her spend more time with Mariko, who had more experience with young children and could check that the seal had no problems like Gaara's. I also asked her to put the same seal on her that everyone else received when they joined the village, as Maki did when she joined. Although this time, the person who felt great shame unexpectedly was me. We were all eating together during dinner, and I noticed that Fu had a dirty mouth. Mariko beside her was distracted talking to Karin, so I took a napkin to clean it myself, and when I finished, she turned to look at me with her orange eyes and said cheerfully, "Thanks, Dad." Everyone fell silent for a second before bursting into laughter so forcefully that they all fell backward, without exception. Damn, even Kimimaro couldn't contain himself. Well, that's not entirely true, there was one person who didn't laugh, and that was Nimue, who looked at me as if she doubted her life, trying to remember when I made a little sister. The subsequent conversation was somewhat awkward, but Fu was adamant in saying that Dad is Dad, and then Nimue joined the conversation with her own logic, affirming that I was indeed her dad. It was chaos. Never try to reason with a little girl. At least, Nimue and Fu bonded a lot from that moment on. In summary, I ended up having 2 daughters even before marrying Aimeirai and Pakura, who were immensely amused by my embarrassment and the fact that I was gaining experience in advance. Why haven't I married them yet? Because I still haven't managed to find and catch that damn ferret. Do you have any idea how many caravans there are in the Wind Country? And they all look the same to top it off. It's a damn headache, but at least I'm lucky that they haven't pressed me about it. I suspect they might have discovered something when I made several rings of pure gold, but I'm not entirely sure. Call it instinct. I've also been researching devil fruits, and I'm halfway successful with some. The data I got from the ninja who ate Seimeigakure's smiles has been very helpful to see if the physiques of this world can withstand them or have any hidden drawbacks. My research on chakram metal has been progressing quite slowly, even with Nimue's help. I guess wanting to create symbiotes based on chakram metal is not as simple an idea as I thought. But I'll persist. Looking at the figure floating in the nutrient solution of the medical capsule in silence, I can't help but sigh. The Uchiha massacre made me make a decision that could complicate things a bit. Chapter 78, Everything is an Illusion. I couldn't help my curiosity and went to witness that night. Not physically, more like using my mantra to see and hear everything that was happening inside. My mastery over the mantra had grown immensely, and although I still didn't have the vast range that the original Enel had, it was close. It was like watching a nightmare movie, where you hope that nothing you see is real. They really brainwashed Itachi, he's completely insane, and the calm type, which makes him even more dangerous. Although I always had the theory that since he knew he would die from an incurable disease, he simply did this to take everyone with him in a fit of rage, feeling that it wasn't fair, and if he died, the rest should follow him to the other world. I also saw Obito using his beloved chains. Is it a fetish? Once Itachi killed his parents and went out to continue the sickening massacre, I appeared in the room amid the screams from outside and destroyed Fugaku's eyes with a discharge. I knew Mikoto had a 3-tomo Sharingan, but I really can't do it after how well we got along. I guess, in the end, the joke played against me. I sighed exasperated with myself as I rubbed my forehead with the palm of my hand. I picked up Mikoto, who had just died, to take her back to the village and put her in a medical capsule in my laboratory. Inside, her blood circulation quickly resumed, oxygen supply returned, and, in short, her vital signs returned while she remained in a deep coma. The fact that she had only been dead for 2 minutes prevented damage to the brain, and after leaving her in Nimue's hands to monitor her and keep her stable, I returned to the Uchiha complex for another additional matter. Izumi Uchiha. It was impossible that with my visits to Itachi's house, I didn't run into this kunoichi at some point, and I must say, I don't understand how someone like Fugaku's son managed to catch her attention. One of the 2 reasons I came back is that I wanted to know what version of death she would have. If Itachi's, where he puts her under a genjutsu to spend a happy life together before dying, or Obito's, trapped by his chains and stabbed with a kunai while waiting for Itachi to save her. Obito's version is the winner, hey. I murmured as I watched the kunoichi tied with chains, awaiting her death. Maybe I spoke too soon. To my surprise, Itachi appeared at the end of the street, and Izumi began asking for his help, only to receive a cold look in return and hear him tell Obito that he had finished killing the entire Uchiha clan. Being the last victim, Izumi's grandmother. Even from such a distance, I could feel Izumi going from surprise to disbelief, ending up exuding a level of hatred that rose to the sky as she looked at Ataki. He tried to pretend that he was not affected in the slightest, but by the way he clenched his hands behind his back, I could tell he wasn't that indifferent. In the next second, Obito's kunai stabbed her, taking Izumi's life. I considered for a moment whether to repeat the same operation as with Mikoto, but I discarded it just as quickly. I could save one or the other, but not both, especially if they would be together after this event. Anyone with a minimum of intelligence would understand the many reasons behind it. So, while Obito was taking Izumi's eyes in front of Ataki with indifference, I repeated what I did to Fugaku with all the bodies I found in the Uchiha complex. Letting Danzo get so many Sharingans? Nah. That sounds bad for everyone. Let them think Obito took everything or something. As for the disappearance of Mikoto's body, let them make whatever theories they want. Her blood is at the scene anyway, and the amount is enough to kill someone from blood loss. Konoha is so sick, I sighed when I finished and disappeared from the place in a flash. I returned to the laboratory where Nimue informed me of a really interesting detail. So, was Mikoto under a genjutsu until the moment she died? I repeated, somewhat puzzled because I didn't remember Itaka using illusions with his parents before attacking them. In fact, I was sure he didn't. To be precise, she was controlled for several hours when she ended up in this state, Nimue clarified while raising a paper from her tablet and carefully examining the information she had just retrieved. It could be said that during this time, she was unconscious and only acted as a puppet. This made me reflect as I furrowed my brow. There seemed to be something wrong during this event that even I was unaware of. Something just didn't fit, and I couldn't place it. Dad, can I give a theory? I turned to look at Nimue with a grimace. She decided to call me Fu, and I just wasn't used to or prepared for that change yet. I think there's a high possibility that Fugaku Uchiha influenced his wife against her will to accept death together, manipulating her with an illusion so that she wouldn't resist. That would indeed make a lot of sense. I realized what the discordant part was. Would Mikoto allow her little Suzuki to have to survive alone in the village that ordered the extermination of one of its founding clans, without having any trustworthy adult strong enough to protect and care for him? Especially considering the trauma and fear she would go through after the massacre of her clan, along with the loneliness and the almost certain manipulation of facts? With the personality I had come to know, it was impossible under any circumstances. And there was only one person in the village who could put Mikoto Uchiha, a bearer of a 3-tomo Sharingan, under an illusion by catching her off guard. Fugaku Uchiha, her husband, and bearer of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Moreover, Itaka killed them from behind, and she couldn't see her mother's face, so she believed that Fugaku's words were from both of them before sending them on their way. There simply was no margin for her to realize that there was something wrong with the whole affair. But why would Fugaku go to such extremes? Some stupidity about Uchiha pride or something. Needless to say, for a couple of days, I've been pondering the matter distractedly, unable to come up with a remotely logical reason. And Mikoto would take some time to recover from the wound, not to mention regaining consciousness. Itaka made sure the blow was quick and lethal, but it seems that the mental damage has turned out to be the worst part. Chapter 79, Fractured Soul. The damage Mikoto endured was much more severe than I initially estimated. I even had to cultivate a giant left lung Jigai from her cells to operate on her and restore her to normalcy. And when she regained consciousness months later, her mind wasn't right. She became something akin to those hospital patients who sit on the garden bench, calmly gazing at the flowers with an absent look. No aggressive reactions or hysterical shouts, just an unsettling lack of response to the world and people, except for eating or using the bathroom with some assistance. Although her children survived, one had to undergo a great trauma at a young age, and the other was the traitor who murdered the entire clan, not sparing even the newborns. Not to mention the fact that her husband wanted her to die with him despite her not having that intention. What was even more concerning was that Nimue brought bad news, discovering that the damage from the entire event had hit Mikoto all at once with such force that her soul was wounded. A small fracture of the soul, of all things she could endure. With all the knowledge I gained, I know how serious this kind of damage is. I even looked back and wondered if it wouldn't have been better to let her stay dead. People usually have a thought process to digest facts, even the most unpleasant and horrible ones. But whether it was the understanding of her son decisively acting to exterminate all her relatives, including killing her with his own hands, or her husband betraying her trust by controlling her, she had to comprehend everything at once in that short instant between the illusion breaking and dying. To call that blow emotionally devastating would be an understatement. That she didn't go insane or become a drooling vegetable was already an extremely surprising and positive outcome. If I hadn't told her that Sasuke was alive and well, she might not even have tried to eat. Right now, she doesn't even have her own thoughts, it's more her motherly instincts fighting to recover and return to the son who desperately needs her. She's hanging by an incredibly thin thread that could break at any moment. When Seimeikage and the others learned about the Uchiha clan massacre, along with the information implicating the higher UPS and how everything had been planned to reach this alley for years, their reactions were one of disbelief. The third Hokage and his allies basically crippled the strength of their village for selfish reasons, justifying the extermination of a founding clan with a simple coup attempt. Even the second Hokage, who had a great grudge against the Uchiha clan, only made sure to restrain them and use them for the village's greater benefit. Tsunade couldn't even stand and had to be held by Shizune when she realized how low and corrupt Sarutobi had become to go to such extremes, collaborating with Denzo in the darkness, and no one dared to protest. Did he still dare to proclaim about his grandfather's will of fire? Senju and Uchiha, the two clans that founded the village of Konoha, were exterminated during the long reign of the third Hokage. If there was even a hint of lingering feelings in his heart toward Konoha and its people, I can say that I saw them die through Tsunade's eyes. Fortunately, it's in moments like this that children like Fu, Haku, or Karin prove to be a great emotional support with their cheerful and innocent attitudes. Mikoto had a small smile on her face every time I, Fu, and Haku spent time with her, despite still having a vacant gaze and a lack of reaction. As for Tsunade, she had to spend a few days drinking my special cider and dragged almost all the adults to join her in her frenzy to vent. She didn't use her chakra to resist the effects of alcohol and revealed an extremely vulnerable side of herself that seemed to have been repressed since she left her home in Konoha. Fortunately for her and her pride, only Seimeikage and I resisted the drink enough to be conscious when she reached that breaking point. Seimeikage didn't even give her a dirty look when Tsunade leaned her head against my abdomen and started crying her eyes out for minutes before calming down and falling asleep in the same position. We made everyone comfortable and covered, after which I went to change my pants since they were completely ruined and uncomfortable, but Seimeikage had a different idea, and in the end, I didn't even need those spare pants until the next morning. 3 more years passed. Haku, Kimimaro, Karin, Maki, and Anko have made great progress in their ninja skills under everyone's guidance, while Fu also practiced very hard not to fall behind. Under my advice and explanations, she befriended Kome and is on her way to becoming a perfect Jinchuriki, but she still needs more practice. I completed the development of the devil fruits with great pride and handed several of them for them to eat, giving them time to practice and familiarize themselves with the fruits before the Chunin exams. Yes, I intend to send a team to participate and see how they manage to develop. I already had a face-to-face meeting with Sarutobi as the village's Kage and agreed to my participation, which posed no problem since I would only send one team, and I imagine they wouldn't be much in his grand scheme. Specifically, it will be formed by Haku, Kimimaro, and Karin. I could send another team with Anko, Maki, and Nimue, but I'm quite sure Konoha would do some dishonest things or manipulations, so even if they don't participate in the exam, we will all go as spectators without hiding anyone's identity. Even Mikoto and Fu will join the fun, I'm sure a change of scenery will do them good. And if Sarutobi has something to say, he can tell me to my face after the Chunin exams. Oh, he can't? What a pity. The written part won't be a problem thanks to the combined teachings of Mariko, Shizune, and Pakura. They have a fairly solid knowledge, especially considering that I also added modern knowledge to their training. As for the will and combat part, they've been training with Tsunade and frequently going hunting with Seimeikage, I'm sure I don't need to say more. Their strength and ability are undoubtedly more than genin, and they still have additional time to grow. After the exams, everyone will recognize our village. I still haven't achieved anything really significant with the chakra metal symbiotes, so I'm considering changing the focus and making living weapons like Seimeikage or something similar to Zanpakuto. I also had a serious talk with Tsunade about her dream of having the wood element. It could be said that after these years, she is completely happy, and the trust between us is beyond doubt due to treating her like family, so I gave her 2 options. One would be to study her lineage to see if there is a solution, and the other would be to eat a devil fruit. To my surprise, she was more inclined towards the option of the devil fruit since, according to her, she had already studied her blood for a long time without results, and by now, she was convinced that she couldn't use her grandfather's ability. I offered her the equivalent of the mosa fruit, which would allow her to accelerate the growth of plants and control them. On the other hand, if she gives me more time, I could try to turn it into a mori fruit, which is more powerful but much more complex to achieve, and I don't have absolute confidence in it. Tsunade considered it for several days before deciding to take the current mosa fruit. She believed that when she familiarized herself with it, she could probably use some ideas to alter her abilities and make them more similar to her grandfather's. Perhaps it wasn't the wood release of the Senju clan, but she was happy enough to achieve something similar. She also reluctantly admitted that she preferred not to bet on a remote possibility this time, leaving Shizuan, who was beside her, completely astonished. And so, a few more years passed until the start of the canon. Chapter 80, This Sword is Not Yours. The seventh team, composed of Kakashi Hatake, Sakura Harano, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki, was preparing to return to the village after successfully completing the mission assigned by Tsunade to protect him during the construction of the bridge in the Land of Waves. The appearance of multiple assassins raised the mission's rank and revealed the client's trap. However, for some strange reason, Kakashi considered there was no problem in continuing it solely due to his team's insistence. He thought it would be good for their experience, and they would see some action. This bridge will be known as the Naruto Bridge. The news excited the blonde boy, but it annoyed the others to hear him bragging about having a bridge named after him. As they bid farewell to Tasunade's family, Kakashi sensed a familiar scent and discreetly turned his head in a specific direction. What's happening? Sasuke noticed the unusual behavior of the Jonin, and without any delicacy, he looked in the same direction, realizing something seconds later. Isn't that where they made the graves for that Zabuza guy and the kid named Haru who intervened in Kakashi's attack? Tomb Raiders. He murmured, intrigued by the possibility. Hey! Naruto turned upon hearing Sasuke, and when the words processed in his small head, his face turned red with anger. Who dares to do something like that? I'm going to teach them a lesson, he proclaimed, shouting as he ran towards the graves. Naruto, don't cause trouble. Sakura tried to stop him, but the blonde ignored the kunoichi. How can he move like that with the injuries he had? She sighed tiredly. Let's go. Kakashi had a bad feeling and hurried to catch up with Naruto. Sasuke and Sakura exchanged glances and, without saying anything, quickly followed, concerned that another concerning event had arisen after the mission. Hey! Drop that sword before I get angry, it's not yours. Kakashi heard Naruto confronting the person who had taken Zabuza's Kubikaraibasho before being followed by the sound of a loud thud and Naruto shouting as he crashed into a tree. Get lost, brat! I found this sword lying here, and now it's mine. Kakashi widened his right eye upon hearing the voice, and after 2 seconds of doubt, he believed he recognized the other party. Anko. Kakashi asked with uncertainty in his voice as he tried to confirm his suspicions and made sure Naruto was okay. If it weren't for his previous contact with her when they were younger, he wouldn't have almost recognized her. The changes she had undergone since her time as a declared B-rank rogue ninja of Konoha in the bingo book were considerable, and to be honest, most people believed she should have died at the hands of Orochimaru years ago when he took her for some of his experiments. Anko was dressed in a strange ninja outfit that vaguely seemed familiar. He was sure he had read something in some report, and her figure had developed significantly. Perhaps only Lady Tsunade could surpass her at the moment. That look of fear, loneliness, and loss had disappeared, replaced by one of determination, confidence, and cunning. She no longer tied her hair as she used to when she was younger and let it grow longer, almost touching her shoulders. She was holding Kubikaraibasho with strange ease over her shoulder, and there was a sense of danger around her. It was only when he saw the headband that he began to connect the dots quickly and realized that Anko's disappearance might never have had anything to do with Orochimaru. Were they deceived, or was there a story he didn't know? Perhaps she escaped from Orochimaru somehow and ended up in Seimeigakure by accident? He still remembered the face of Yamanaka, the head of the intelligence department, before leaving on the current mission, walking like a zombie while holding an empty coffee cup. Normal, it was upside down, due to his exclusive and exhaustive work of locating that village, with no result despite all these years. The reward for that information had tripled on the black market. Kakashi. Anko looked at the newcomer and, upon noticing his white hair, mask, and covered eye, immediately knew who he was. Ha! I never thought the day would come when Kakashi Hatake had to lead a team of brats. So, is the blonde idiot part of your team? She asked. Well, good thing I didn't decide to kill him. It hurts. Naruto's cry interrupted their conversation. Damn witch! I'm going to. Without warning, Naruto suddenly felt numb from head to toe and couldn't move no matter how hard he tried. Panic set in. Kakashi narrowed his eyes and recognized the symptoms: poison. It seems your mastery of poison has improved a lot over the years, he commented after making sure it was just a harmless paralyzing poison. What has happened to your life since you disappeared? He asked, wanting to extract information. Before that, do you want to control the rest of the brats, or should I break a few bones? Anko asked as she looked behind Kakashi. Sasuke and Sakura arrived to see Naruto completely rigid in a strange position and got into a combat stance. Calm down, it's not someone you have a chance against, Kakashi warned sternly. Sakura, pick up Naruto. Sasuke, escort both of them to Tajina's house. Be careful of ambushes. Fine. Sasuke had gained a new respect for Kakashi after this mission and knew he still needed to strengthen himself significantly if he wanted to kill that man, so he followed the instructions and withdrew while keeping his eyes on Anko until he disappeared among the leaves, alongside a struggling Sakura dragging a paralyzed Naruto. So, what were you saying? Urged Kakashi, interested in knowing what happened that night and maintaining an apparently relaxed posture that would actually allow him to react to any attack. There's not much to tell, really. Anko shrugged and began to tell the story she had agreed upon with everyone. I was kidnapped by Orochimaru for one of his strange experiments, but before he could tie me to the operating table, I managed to escape thanks to a gullible jailer. During my escape, I suffered a blow to the head that gave me amnesia. She lifted her gaze slightly as if remembering, just as she had rehearsed many times. Later, I found a place to call home, people who appreciate me without prejudice or belief in manipulated rumors. I fell in love, and over time, I regained my memories. Her gaze returned to Kakashi, and she put on a genuine smile, the only honest act of her performance until now. Looking back at what I had, the choice was easy. Didn't you think of returning to the village, even for a moment? Kakashi asked seriously. The same village that declared me a rogue ninja within 12 hours of my abduction? Sure, they'd welcome me with open arms and a smile, Anko retorted with a tone laden with mockery and sarcasm. Don't play dumb with me, Kakashi, you know very well that I was only used as one of many targets for the village's anger. Beaten to the ground, only for that idiot Sarutobi to come and show me the warmth of the will of fire. Apparently, he likes to find young fuel to burn, from what I heard. Anko remembered what Enel told her about how coincidental Sarutobi's arrival was during the Nine Tails uproar. Right after Minato made the seal, he appeared the next second like clockwork. Or like someone who saw an opportunity and decided waiting was the best. You shouldn't insult the Hokage in front of a Konoha ninja. Kakashi became more serious and looked at the kunoichi with intensity. Seeing that she showed no fear, he could only sigh and add, I worried a lot about you. Yet, I thought about writing her a letter or something to put her mind at ease. Since she was my best friend and all, but Anko pointed to her face, it's a bit difficult when you have amnesia and are declared a rogue ninja. Remember. So why is that not a problem now? Kakashi wanted to know, unable to understand her behavior. I'll report this encounter to the Hokage, I won't keep quiet that I saw you. You're right, I should be worried about that, Anko frowned before putting on an enlightened expression. Oh, wait, I just remembered, when I deliver this sword, it won't matter, actually. The Kubikariba show. Kakashi looked at her strangely. Why the hell do you want that big piece of iron? Its only ability is to regenerate with the iron in the blood of its victims, it's not even properly made of chakra metal. It's my ticket to achieving my latest dream, Anko responded mysteriously as she blushed slightly. In fact, I don't know why you don't take it as a war trophy to ask Kirigakure for a ransom, but it works for me. That way, I avoid using those brats as hostages for you to hand it over. Kakashi frowned at the last statement. Not only did he not like what he heard, but he understood that the sword seemed to have a higher purpose that he didn't know. Anko, on the other hand, would have left long ago if Kakashi weren't one of the few people who didn't treat her badly at the moment, although he didn't offer to help her either. But Kakashi at that time was essentially a zombie with his own problems, so she could forgive him. She was impatient to finally complete the task and deliver the sword to Seimeikage, so she could call her big sister. Collecting one of the 7 mist swords was her condition for recognition. Pakura had given her approval 2 years ago, so when Enel whispered to her in secret that there was a high probability she would get this sword in this place these days, it felt like she had eaten honey-covered dango. She had been waiting for this moment for years, and now she was 24. She didn't want to wait any longer. So don't worry, Kakashi, Anko said as she turned to leave and left behind words that left the white-haired Jonin stunned. Unless that old fool wants to suffer the retaliation of an entire village, he won't dare to give me even a dirty look. Oh, give this to the Uchiha brat, she tossed a storage scroll to him. I think he'll like it. She used the body flicker technique and disappeared, leaving Kakashi pondering the possible meaning of her words. And I thought things were going to calm down, he sighed as he turned around to see if Naruto had regained mobility and reflexively checked if the scroll had any installed traps. It wasn't until later, when he saw its content, that he was completely bewildered. Why was Sasuke crying at the sight of an apple pie? Chapter 81, The Last Fruit. Did Anko manage to get you one of those rare swords? Mariko asked in surprise when Seimeikage presented the Kyubikuriba for the same sealing process she had done with the previous ones. Yes, she's so happy that she didn't even wait until night to claim her prize, Seimeikage teased, inwardly respecting Anko's determination to achieve her goal despite the difficulties over the years. I'll let her have a good time, she has earned it. In fact, I wonder if she can handle it alone. You know, when you proposed this condition to her, I almost thought you were subtly rejecting her, Mariko admitted as she took out chakra ink and studied the broad surface of the sword. It seems you still don't understand me, then, Seimeikage laughed while sitting, swinging her legs, and taking out an apple to eat. If I wanted to reject her, I would have kicked her in the ass the moment she told me to my face that she wanted to have my man too. Our man, Seimeikage, Pakura approached and corrected the last part she heard from her sister. I also admit that I thought it was a temporary youthful infatuation, but Anko has shown what she really feels for Enel. I'm glad that we are now three sisters. At least I didn't make it as easy as you did. You just asked for some rare species for your kitchen. Seimeikage pointed out as she chewed the apple. And why did you come? Don't tell me you want the Kyubikuriba for Maki, I doubt the girl has enough strength even to lift it. It's not that, you can keep that piece of iron, Pakura rolled her eyes. Maki finished weaving the cloud fabric roll and wanted to know when it would be convenient for Mariko to take a look to see what seals she could put on it. She has some ideas she wants to try. And why didn't she come herself? Mariko asked intrigued. She's with Haku, you know, Pakura sighed as she turned her head and gave Seimeikage a reproachful look. The boy was so innocent, and you ended up giving him a bad habit. Hey! It wasn't just my doing, Anko and Shizune also have a part, no. The majority of the blame, Seimeikage defended herself while still enjoying the apple in her hand. We just gave him a new perspective on humor, gaining more confidence in himself. You should have seen Enel's eyelid twitch when he found out. Oh, I remember, Seimeikage nodded, widening her smile. I couldn't walk straight for a week, it was great. Hey! Mariko scolded Seimeikage. And if Fu hears you? Do you want to be the one to give her the talk? Seimeikage rolled her eyes but didn't say anything more. She didn't want to step into that minefield, not until she had her first biological daughter. Let Pakura or Anko handle that tricky part. Speaking of Fu, have you seen her? Pakura asked, looking around. She's not with the Cloud Foxes, nor in the training field. Did she go flying with Kimimaro on the Kinton Clouds again? She's with Mikoto, Seimeikage replied as she finished the last of the apple. Since she started her rehabilitation, she's been spending a lot of time with her to cheer her up. Although she can take care of herself now and gives us some answers with her head if we ask, she still hasn't managed to speak again and still has dull eyes. Yes, Karin says it's a positive reinforcement for her recovery, Mariko nodded. Hey, Mariko, Seimeikage called. Did Karin tell you if it's true about Tsunade? Tsunade? Pakura looked bewildered at the two. I found out after getting a couple of jugs of that special cider and getting her drunk, but I don't know if it's true or she was rambling, Seimeikage shrugged. Apparently, she swallowed her pride and asked Enel last year to become her medicine master, just like Karin. Pakura was left dumbfounded. Doesn't that mean Karin is older than Tsunade? She asked with a strange tone, feeling that the situation was not quite right. The connoisseur is the master, age has nothing to do with it, Nemu recited as she joined the conversation. Hello, Moms and Mrs. Mariko. Hello, Nemu, Pakura smiled, already accustomed and delighted to be called that. How did you get out of the laboratory so early today? I came to deliver the devil fruit to Mrs. Mariko, she's the only one in the village who hadn't received one yet, Nemu explained as she took out a box and opened it to reveal a semi-transparent pear with swirls on its surface surrounded by cold air. Dad took a bit longer than expected to adjust it and make sure it really had the expected effect, without leaving any exploitable gaps. I'll thank him later, he's busy with some matters now, and it's better not to bother him. Mariko nodded as she looked curiously at the fruit before taking a bite and frowned. The taste is not exactly pleasant. At least you didn't run to the bathroom to vomit for half an hour like someone I know, Seimeikage said, her eyes covertly glancing at Pakura. It was only once. Pakura complained, shivering at the memory. My poor tongue, I couldn't taste anything for a week. The effect seems correct, Mariko said, drawing everyone's attention when she made her right arm disappear, and they saw the brush fly in the air. The invisible arm doesn't even cast a shadow, it's perfect. Is it a fruit with the power of invisibility? Pakura asked. Yes, Nimue confirmed as she stored the preservation box. Mrs. Mariko is the fourth and last user of a fruit classified as paramecia. Now, all the villagers, including me, have a devil fruit ability. I have to admit they are convenient, it's a pity we can only eat one, Pakura sighed. More than that, and our body simply won't accept it. At least we don't have side effects like the ninja from Seimeigakure who haven't been very lucky with the smiles, some are really ugly, Seimeikage said with disgust. You're right. Indeed, indeed. Chapter 82, Connecting the Dots. The information Kakashi learned from Suzuki while they were eating the best apple pie he had ever tasted left him cold, contemplating the possible implications. Upon hearing about his mother's frequent visits and comparing the information he had access to with his rank in the village, he realized that the man he saw years ago in the village cemetery was the Kage of Seimeigakure in person. A Kage from another village frequently visited the Uchiha, and the village had no knowledge of it. How did he manage to pass through the barriers surrounding the entire village, barriers that were the work of the best, now extinct, sealing masters in the world? While his strength was unknown at the moment, anyone with the courage to found a new village always had something to back them up. This man was not simple, he had managed to make Seimeikage Ringo, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist known for her difficult personality, desert her village. Somehow, he seemed to have cured her impossible to treat illness. Pakura from Tsunade also revealed that she was not only alive but had also joined the same village. Her apprentice disappeared shortly after the news became known, supposedly, she also deserted to join her master, but there was no confirmation at the moment. 2 high-level and famous kunoichis with a reputation that supported their strength might seem like something to trust, but it wasn't everything. 3 people couldn't form a village. At least one surviving Uzumaki woman associated with that village was confirmed, and there were rumors of a possible second, easily recognizable by her hair. Now he also knew that Anko, whom everyone believed had been kidnapped by Orochimaru, had also joined the village. Perhaps the kunoichi had been underestimated by Konoha's superiors. After all, it was true that she was under Orochimaru's tutelage, and there had to be a reason why she caught his attention. She even had the contract with the Raiwichi cave. The potential was there, and Kakashi guessed that the aggressive reform she underwent was to mold her and ensure that her potential served only the village. More importantly, Anko had been exposed to numerous secrets, not too important due to her rough state, but not few. And from the attitude he saw, they no longer seemed so secret. Any important information, secret techniques, poisons, and more that she knew could potentially have been exposed and delivered to Seimeigakure. And if that wasn't enough, the shit hit the fan when the third Hokage decided it was time for Tsunade Senju to return to the village and opened the box that Anbu gave her back then. By coincidence, he was present when the decision was made, and he didn't know what was inside due to the arrangement of the office. But the third Hokage went from an expression of bewilderment to having a completely pale face, before turning liver-colored and clutching his chest tightly to try to calm himself as he closed the box with force. After that, he sent Anbu to search for her with all their might throughout the casinos of the Land of Fire, and there were no results. This was unprecedented. The rumors of the fat sheep had always been very easy to find and were one of the main reasons why Princess Tsunade was allowed to leave the village. It was like an immense smoke signal that could be seen for kilometers, there was simply no way they couldn't find her when they wanted to. But suddenly, it was as if she had stopped gambling and had found something more interesting to do. Something more discreet that didn't constantly reveal her whereabouts easily. Tsunade Senju not gambling in a casino for 3 consecutive days? Impossible. And then came the horror. Tsunade and her apprentice, Shizuan Sato, were seen one night in the Land of Hot Springs accompanied by Seimeikage, Pakura and a kunoichi with black hair who seemed sick, having a good time and talking as if they were lifelong friends while drinking and eating. The information made the temperature in the Hokage's office drop a few degrees, especially because Tsunade's bill was attached for Konoha to pay. A terrifying possibility crossed Kakashi's mind, utterly ridiculous. After the cases of Seimeigakure and Pakura, were Tsunade and Shizune next? Had the princess of the Senju clan deserted the village founded by her grandfather? Sarutobi immediately ordered a ban on all present, but the unease in the back of their minds couldn't be calmed until they saw the Chunin return to the village. Needless to say, the attention Seimeigakure received from Konoha almost quintupled instantly, and due to an accident, they discovered that Seimeigakure, which had lately been showing very strange ninjas, seemed to have a very happy deal with this village. So happy that they didn't even try to steal, assassinate, or seduce anyone. Not even once. It was madness. There were rumors that the deal involved medicines, organs, weapons, and all kinds of speculations. Nothing really reliable, as the strangest one was about a fruit that gave powers. Clearly, a cheap and unimaginative invention. Now, in the black market, information appeared about something that alarmed the Hyuga clan and sent them into a frenzy to confirm it at all costs. Artificial Byakugan. They could trace the source of the information back to Seimeigakure because, for some unknown reason to them, Oniki seemed to have a grudge against the cage of Seimeigakure. The conflict between the main and branch families erupted like never before. What's the point of using the caged bird seal when others can buy your dojutsu in bulk? To the surprise of many, including the Hyuga patriarch himself, his daughter and heir stood up to defend Enel with great determination. It is rumored that Hiashi Hyuga fainted on the spot upon hearing Hinata, while her words made the branch family view her very favorably. It's not a pun, I swear. Now? Let's say that no one messes with the Hyuga heiress, not within the clan, unless you want to receive a heated response from the branch family. The branch that is in all aspects and affairs of the clan. Ironically, the heiress of the main branch won the goodwill of the branch without even having to use the caged bird seal that would force them to obey. Everyone knows that this made the patriarch silent, as it was a good development for his daughter and he no longer had to endure so much pressure, which caused him to start improving in his training. But he began to have a possible idea of why Oniki held a grudge against Enel. And Kakashi suddenly remembered a point from his conversation with Anko, apparently insignificant. Something about being in love? Suddenly, he widened his eye a lot and believed he understood how Anko had the courage to say that if something happened to her, the whole village would go against Konoha. Damn, he couldn't help but curse aloud out of nowhere. Kakashi-sensei, language. Sakura corrected, unaware of the consequences of their encounter. Kakashi looked at her, and Sakura fell silent. Why was her sensei giving that scary look? Chapter 83, Chunin Exams. I said I was going to speed things up, I wasn't kidding. Otherwise, we'll have a soap opera here. The participants from each village gathered in Konoha to carry out the Chunin exams, which amounted to a small display of power for others. The participating villages were Otagakure, Tsunagakure, Takigakure, Seimeigakure, and others. Kusagakure was going to participate, but since the village's disappearance, simply no one remembers them. That's how relevant they were in the ninja world, and. Who was I talking about? It doesn't matter. The point is that while the others arrived in unexpectedly synchronized fashion, the group from Seimeigakure, which had been waiting for them, made their grand entrance with a thunder loud enough to shake the earth. In the astonished gazes of everyone, one could practically hear background music as if it were a slow-motion entrance with special effects and subtitles introducing each person. Team leader, Enel. Exam participants, Haku, Kimimaru, and Karin. Accompanying, Seimeigakure, Pakura, Anko, Nimue, Fu, Mariko, Maki, Tsunade, Mikoto, and Shizune. Naturally, the whole village came to cheer for their team. As for the reactions to their arrival, they were diverse. From the team of Tsunagakure, Temari looked excitedly at her idol while trying to control herself so that it wouldn't be too obvious. If the Kunoichis of Konoha have Tsunade as their target, then the Kunoichis of the Sand have Pakura. She widened her eyes upon noticing a beautiful gold ring with a blue gem carved on one of Pakura's fingers, a very significant one, and quickly noticed how Enel wore a matching one. This made her young mind start working at full speed, especially when, to her confusion, she saw that two more women wore the same ring. Regarding why she joined another village, everyone had an idea in their hearts of what probably happened, and they couldn't help but secretly scold Raza again. That said, it's curious that the Kozakage seems determined to ignore Pakura's appearance, treating her as if she were air. How strange, that's not like Raza at all. Meanwhile, the participants from Seimeigakure looked at Fu with suspicion. She had refused to disguise herself, and Enel simply shrugged at his daughter's protest. Her skin, hair, and distinctive eyes matched a certain missing asset from their village, but they didn't dare do anything with so many people present. Fu also recognized their headbands, which, for her, were the same as the headbands the bad guys used. The ninjas of Konoha were more focused on the changed but still smiling Anko, who, for them, was a traitor regardless of the story reported by Kakashi to the Hokage. But despite everything, they could only grit their teeth because, as ninjas, they were observers, and they also saw the ring on her finger. Jumping and demanding that the cage of another village hand over his wife, even if she was part of his village in the past, they couldn't even imagine the political problems that would start, not to mention the retaliation from Seimeigakure, which has a very good relationship with Seimeigakure. The worst part is that Enel's strength is still unknown to them. Only the other women with rings are enough to cause great harm if they decide to defend their sister from her former village. So, endure it for now and try to maneuver within the possibilities. Perhaps they can ask for some kind of compensation, like one of the 3 Uzumaki women. Remember that Nemu was born a redhead, which is why they confuse her. They're not entirely wrong. Although the appearance of Tsunade and Shizune alongside the group completely disoriented them. Why was their son in with the envoys from a foreign village? But the human mind is a wonderful thing, and in a few seconds, most arrived at the same conclusion. It's no wonder there was no news of her in the Land of Fire. It turns out she was in casinos in another place. This is good, they can confirm that Seimeigakure is not built on their territory, right? It's more than they had before. And surely Tsunade-sama will report later on her findings to the village. The rest of the newcomers felt envious for not being able to make such an epic entrance, and Enel thought it was a pity that the Raikage wouldn't arrive until the 3rd test. After all these years, he had come to get along well with the musclehead despite some tricks. If I remember correctly, for the exams, there were generic cages in the 3rd test. I'll just make something up from there. Welcome to Konoha. We have already prepared a place for you to stay. Please, follow me. A Konoha ninja approached them and greeted them courteously. A splendid actor. Lead the way, Enel responded, while pondering a small detail. Since the village of Seimeigakure is gone, who will Orochimaru impersonate this time to infiltrate the exam? He will have to be vigilant, otherwise, he might have some ideas about his team, and he will have to fry the snake. Once they arrived at the designated building with enough space for everyone, as Enel reported the number of people he was going to bring, they checked the place to disable nuisances, and Mariko set seals for privacy. Haku, Seimeikage, and Karin, Enel called. Do you remember what I told you for this exam? Yes, confirmed Seimeikage with the same stoic expression as always, showing his commitment and concentration. Find the location by passing the illusion and don't write or say anything in the 1st test. In the 2nd, find the 2 necessary scrolls and get to the center tower as quickly as possible to break the record and rest, continued Karin. We can also take more if we encounter other teams, to reduce the competition. Then, it's all about fights, and the finals are a month later, concluded Haku. I am so proud, Enel wiped away an imaginary tear. Remember that this is for us to interact with more people your age, don't worry too much and just have fun. Everyone can move freely. If you find a masked ninja who gives you an order, you can do whatever you want with him. No matter if it's ANBU or root, they have no right to give you orders. Anything to add? Enel looked at everyone, and no one wanted to contribute anything else, so they dispersed. Anko decided to return to the dango shop where she coincided with Enel years ago. Nemu and Fu went for a walk with Mikoto, the rest of the kids went with Mariko, Pakura, and Aimeirai just walked around as they pleased, while Tsunade and Shizune received a warning from ANBU to meet with the Hokage. I heard you, Tsunade affirmed without interest before continuing with her business, not in a hurry to attend the summons. The ANBU ninja was bewildered, but since Tsunade's master was the Hokage, he could only resign himself. Chapter 84, The Darkness Looms. Sarutobi was puffing on his pipe, something he rarely did, and with the tobacco he reserved for more stressful occasions, filling his office with so much unpleasant and pungent smoke that his secretary was forced to open the windows. After learning of his disciple's arrival in the village, he had sent ANBU to summon her and was now waiting for her to come to his office. He still regretted opening the box in the presence of others, just to emphasize his authority in their eyes and enjoy once again that feeling of control. Fortunately, no one saw its contents, but that ambiguity combined with his own reaction gave rise to dangerous thoughts. It didn't help that none of those present at that moment were stupid, everything would have been simpler then. But he simply couldn't contain himself. Seeing inside the box Tsunade's Konoha headband, which he had given her personally and whose serial number he had engraved in his memory, crossed out with a cut so clean and decisive that it pierced the metal and tore the back fabric, almost gave him a heart attack as he processed the implications. It was only his long-standing position that prevented him from having a nervous breakdown, or the village would be looking for his replacement now. But he couldn't get angry, or rather, he couldn't afford to. Tsunade was a pillar of the village and a great deterrent for many problems, an icon for countless kunoichis and medical ninjas, a living legend as a Chunin, and the last descendant of the Senju clan. Her identity, authority, and influence had diminished over time due to her prolonged absence, but underestimating her for that would be a big mistake. If people knew that she had become a rebel ninja, Konoha would not only become the laughingstock of the ninja world, but people would start having thoughts about their resources and territories. So no matter how humiliated and angry he felt upon receiving the bill she sent him for her party, he had to pay it, because otherwise, people would start asking questions about why he would refuse. But now she came in style, alongside another village, and the more astute people would begin to suspect. He didn't doubt that the patriarch of the Nara clan had already started deducing some points, and he wouldn't be the only one as time passed. His theory was that Seimeigakure received her as a guest to treat Jiraya Ringo's illness, which must have made it more difficult to locate her than usual. He was aware of the type of illness and knew that even Tsunade would have to dedicate a considerable amount of time just to keep her stable, not to mention finding a cure. But it seems she succeeded, much to his displeasure. At least, he retained a last trace of dignity, and she wasn't wearing the headband of another village. That would have been even more humiliating than open desertion. Sarutobi believed that as long as he could meet with Tsunade, he could use his silver tongue and the will of fire to show her the light and make her return to Konoha. Then he would use guilt and the need to make up for her mistakes to make her assume the position of the hospital director, forcing her to stay within the village and preparing her to succeed him as the fifth Hokage. The ideal would be to look for a ninja who resembled Kato Dan and cause a mistake one drunken night. He still wanted to try to get Tsunade to give birth to some children, and since she would be busy as Hokage, he would offer to take care of them and secretly use the opportunity to enlighten them about the will of fire. He didn't even have to worry that she would decide to abort. The feelings and blood connection of the Senju clan are powerful, and he was sure that even if it were a one-night accident, she would choose to protect her child and give birth. Once the target was hit, Tsunade would have no way to escape the trap. He tapped his pipe on the table and looked at the clock. Why is she taking so long? He complained unsatisfied. And as he contemplated the possible delay, his kindred soul arrived. The conspirator of darkness, the twisted hidden root of the village, the man who liked to stroll through the Uchiha district with a spoon to extract eyes, whose name would scare children if they knew of his existence, who considered that he embodied the village because his benefit was the village's benefit. Danzo Shimura. Deafening applause as MMA-style music plays. Saru. We need to talk. Not now, Danzo, I'm waiting for Tsunade, said Sarutobi calmly as he bit the pipe again. I heard that Seimeigakure brought several members of the Uzumaki clan to the village. Danzo ignored Sarutobi and stated his point. We need to get them. With them, we'll have a constant supply of new Uzumaki blood in a few years, and the village will never have to worry about whether there's a disobedient Jinchuriki. Do you think they won't notice their absence? Sarutobi replied, lowering his Hokage hat to hide his eyes. Still, there's that traitor Anko Mitarashi. Just use her as leverage to get at least one of the younger ones. We can process them to make them obedient, and they can give birth more times, Danzo said coldly, calculating mentally how big his share of the benefits could be, how many Uzumaki children he could get for himself. And if they aren't willing, we can make sure she has an accident in the second test so that she disappears into the depths of the forest of death. Sarutobi kept silent, and that was good for Danzo. As long as he didn't expressly say he was against it, he could have carte blanche on the matter tacitly. Like so many other times in the past, good times. This village is nothing, a piece of meat waiting to be divided, Danzo struck when the iron was still hot. They only have a couple of famous kunoichis, a bunch of brats, and their leader has no real power, otherwise, when he caused a commotion in Seimeigakure, he wouldn't have chosen to run away instead of facing his pursuers. He's a king on a paper throne. Sarutobi continued to keep silent, but from his posture, Danzo could see that he was feeling more and more tempted. They have the Jinchuriki of the Seven Tails, Saru. Danzo dropped the bomb he had prepared to seal the deal. Takigakure may have tried to hide it, but it's easy for my root to notice that they panicked when it disappeared years ago. Since Takigakure has a good relationship with us, we can use it as a legitimate reason to deal with them and then ask for a gift from Takigakure to thank us for our efforts to return their Jinchuriki. Otherwise, Konoha can have 2 of them like Seimeigakure, and will be on equal terms. The seeds to have his own loyal Uzumaki clan to the village, one that could use the collection of scrolls they obtained from the original clan and a tailed beast, this was loot that the 3rd Hokage considered worthy of the risk. Remember, I won't know anything about this, Danzo, the 3rd Hokage affirmed as he turned the chair and gave him his back. Let him bear the darkness of Konoha, proclaimed Danzo as he left the office and thought with disdain of Sarutobi's hypocritical attitude. If he had to take stock of who had done more dark things, he wouldn't be sure to be the winner. If you were transmigrated to the world of Naruto and had to choose a woman or a man from that world to be your partner, who would you choose? Rules. 1. You can only choose one person, you cannot have a harem, there are no loopholes like choosing twins for a 2-for-1. 2. The person must be 100% human and appear in the Naruto series, manga, or movies, no aliens, bijus, robots, or chakra beasts. 3. You will not have a protagonist halo when you get there and you have to work on your feelings to win over that person, they will not automatically like you for choosing them. 4. You can choose the timeline between the 1st and 4th Great Ninja War. 5. When choosing, say her name, put an image, where she appeared, in what movie, filler arc, moment in the story, and a reason why she. Your goal is. Chapter 85, Bad Habit. Once the first part of the exam began, it was quite boring. Although I admit it was entertaining to see Kabuto pretending to be an expert when he had no information about my team on his beloved ninja cards and started sweating when others asked him for those same details. Intelligent, they know how to recognize a threat. But it's a shame, how would anyone know about their abilities? Anyone who has seen them is dead and handed over with a bow to the black market office. Jiraya made sure of that, including ensuring that no one could get memories from the bodies. Haku paralyzed the 2 thugs blocking the way with his needles without a word, and the team successfully reached the room for the written test. For anyone unfamiliar with them, the team had a clear contrast despite having a common uniform that revealed their shared origin. Karin seemed to look around timidly when she was actually analyzing those present. Seimeikage exuded an aura that made it clear it was better not to mess with him, and Haku was the center of attention for his beauty. Milky white skin, long black and silky hair, shiny lips, and the official village uniform left everything to the imagination. It didn't help that he used floral perfume or that his gestures and behavior conveyed a delicate and beautiful flower. Those present were mesmerized looking at Haku, including some girls. I still find it a bit difficult to accept that the innocent Haku I knew has formed this bad habit because of Seimeikage, Anko, and Shizuan. Before, Haku would always jump in annoyance when someone confused him with the female gender. And now, due to the bad influence he had while growing up, he developed a taste for teasing people. Yes, the same Haku who was as pure as the white snow on the highest mountain. He finds it amusing to see people act to impress him and then tell them with a dazzling smile that he is actually a man. The fact that his Adam's apple is barely noticeable doesn't help, and he has even practiced changing his voice by manipulating the vocal cords in the neck with chakra to make it even more neutral, using the original voice for the final blow. The idea was from Shizuan, to my surprise. Fortunately, that's where his bad habit ends. Due to his natural beauty, he doesn't need to wear makeup at all, and he still shows interest in women. I even suspect that he has some glances with Karin, without either of them realizing it yet. If the genes of the Yuki clan and the Uzumaki clan are combined, what would be the result? The exam began with the arrival of Ibiki, and those who did not understand the true intention of testing their espionage skills began to rack their brains trying to answer honestly. My team didn't even pick up the pencil and waited as I instructed them, there's nothing to do, really, to pass. I see Ibiki frowning, surely wondering if the content of the exam has somehow leaked. As for how I see it, I'm just lying on the grass in a nearby park with my eyes closed while using my mantra to cover everything. Naruto was about to give his speech after raising his hand, but he became paralyzed again thanks to a frozen poison needle that Anko gave to Haku early on at my request. Many will regain their confidence after the blonde's screams, and I wanted to eliminate the cannon fodder early so that the kids would have a good time later. Now, to my surprise, things took a turn, and Ibiki seemed to misinterpret everything. He saw Naruto raise his hand and stand still, so he announced the withdrawal of Team 7 from the exam. Sakura and Sasuke couldn't believe it, they were totally clueless and glared angrily at Naruto. Well, Sasuke did, while Sakura seemed relieved not to be the one who messed up the team's opportunity. It wasn't until later when Ui arrived to guide everyone to the Forest of Death that they realized Naruto was still in the same position in the classroom. After discovering that he was paralyzed, they searched for clues to the attack, but too bad for them, there's a reason I asked Anko to freeze the poison in that form. Once it acts, it quickly melts in the wound due to its small size from the body's heat and enters the bloodstream without a trace. After giving him an antidote, Naruto jumped in a panic, explaining that he didn't want to give up and that everything was the poison's fault, which forced him to raise his arm. Anyone could tell he was sweating and lying about it, but as Konoha is known for being fair, they accepted his explanation and generously cancelled the withdrawal of their 3 genin. I'm pretty sure Sarutobi had a hand in this. Now, the leaders of the teams from the different villages were gathered to reach the central tower of the Forest of Death to watch the second test through the monitors. It doesn't make a difference to me. Oh? It seems Nimue is being ambushed by 3, 4, 6 masked ninjas. Danzo couldn't contain himself, or? I looked at Sarutobi, who was sitting in a large leather chair while the others were sitting on common wooden chairs, a rather childish power play, I must say. Without further ado, I took out my cloud chair and lay comfortably on it while taking out an apple and biting into it. Sarutobi looked at me in astonishment, although I'm not sure if it's because he knows how I took out the cloud chair so easily or where the apple came from in my hand. He seemed to be looking at the screens, but I was actually monitoring Nimue's fight and how she used the powers of the fruit I gave her. Since his role is essentially my laboratory assistant, I gave him the ice fruit used by Aokiji so that he could easily preserve samples from experiments. It's also great for getting pure ice for parties or making milkshakes. Maybe someone would think it was unnecessary since I already have Haku with me, or that I should have given it to him instead, but Haku's role was never to be in the laboratory to begin with, and it would be very, very stupid to give ice powers to someone who already has them. Haku has something much more useful and in tune with him. Also, the ice fruit was one of the first successful logias because its principle is quite simple compared to others, like Mariko's paramecia or the one I gave to Shizuan, which took more effort to cover the desired effect. Nimue pretended to be surprised, and one of the... Are they root or enbu? Well, one of the masked attacked her leg while another did the same to her right shoulder. When Nimue fragmented into pieces of ice due to the elemental state, they thought she used the substitution technique and looked around alertly. That cost the 2 attackers becoming ice statues. The remaining 4 reacted to the attack, but seeing how they took the initiative to destroy the statues of their comrades to leave no traces, I can point out that they are from Root. Oh, they mistook her and think she's someone from the Yuki clan who dyed her hair. Seriously? I mean, why do they say these things out loud? I thought they were more professional because they suppressed their emotions and all. I'm not even going to bother watching the rest. Nimue won't even break a sweat to finish them off. There it is, all dead, turned into ice cubes. Well, Nimue stored them in a capsule, well thought out, we can study them when they thaw. I'm curious to see if cutting their tongue loses the effect of the seal and if we can access their memories, among other things. Heavens, that really sounded very Orochimaru. Chapter 86, The Forest of Death. I've already figured out who the new face of Orochimaru is. A male ninja from Seimeigakure was the fortunate one who decided to give up his life, and skin, to provide a disguise for the snake. If the remaining 2 from that village fall, it will take a bit longer for the information that Fu is with us to reach them. As for his demands, it's interesting to note that while Nimue was fighting, Haku and the rest of the team already entered the Forest of Death. Ui was friendlier explaining the rules, but everyone still had to sign the death consent, which seems normal considering that Konoha prefers not to compensate anyone. I could call and warn them about Orochimaru, but even if the snake tries to put the cursed seal on them, he couldn't with their current abilities. Although I told them to break the record for the test, it was just because I didn't feel like spending 3 days staring at monitors until they reached the tower. Sarutobi continues to smoke indoors, and that's disrespectful to everyone present, so I sat near the window. The wind coming in blocks the smell and prevents my pants from smelling like tobacco. I can see that Karin used her perception to find the nearest team, which is Shino, Kaiba, and Hinata's group. Tough luck, both teams have the same scroll, so it's pointless to take them down. Also, why does this Hinata look different from the one I remember from the series? I mean, apparently, she's similar, but her gestures and attitude seem less, what would be the right word, timid? Did her clan start treating her better, make a special friend, or something? I remember that even Hanabi could beat her in training because she unconsciously held back, which greatly undermined her morale, not to mention her father's attitude toward her. Strange, I'll have to ask later to see if I missed any important news. Both teams faced off, and undoubtedly the one who fared the worst from the start was Kaiba, who quite boldly commented on how he and Akamaru would enjoy Kimamaro's bones. I assume it was a joke, because otherwise, it would technically be cannibalism. Let's say that the Inuzuka and Kagaya clans were not very compatible due to their different ancestral philosophies. Winsome, the matriarch of the Inuzuka clan present in the room, saw her son's behavior. She apologized to me even though she was obviously trying to hold back laughter. Her expression when she saw how little Kaiba lasted before being defeated by a bone user was priceless. I'm sure I heard her mutter something about tripling the training or something while gritting her teeth. At this point, it was I who apologized, and boy, did I really make sure to rub salt in the wound. It was fun. Maybe I shouldn't have? After all, she and her dog were the key donors for me to develop the smiles that I am successfully selling to Seimeigakure. Shino made a move against Haku. Although the members of the Aberame clan have their faces mostly covered, everyone could feel the young ninja's bewilderment when his beloved swarms of insects ended up turned into ice sculptures in the purest style of. What were the names of Lady Dimitrescu's 3 daughters in Resident Evil Village? Well, that. No matter, the point is that sending insects against someone from the Yuki clan is not a good idea. Although I admit that the frozen sculpture has a twisted beauty, maybe it could be a new business for the Aberame clan. There are collectors of all kinds in the world. Now, when it came to Karin and Hinata, everyone in the monitoring room, including me, was perplexed. Although there is no sound, and the camera images are not 4K, you can see that after exchanging a few words, the two approached and began to talk happily. It was more like Hinata asking questions while Karin responded enthusiastically. I was almost tempted to use mantra to find out about the conversation, but I decided not to meddle too much. Karin will tell me everything if necessary later, and I have always respected the privacy of people from my village. What? I said to everyone who looked at me suspiciously, as if what had happened was some kind of plan that I came up with before the test. Don't look at me like that, I know as much as you do, I said, pointing to the monitors as I began to eat my 3rd apple. Homura Mitokato is frowning because he can't figure out where I got the apples from. Or maybe it's because I didn't offer them any. Too bad, neither he nor Koharu will have that luck in their lives. In any case, the conversation the two kunoichis had resulted in them allowing each other to keep their scrolls after confirming that both teams had the same one. Haku had no problem, but Kimimaro seemed annoyed until Karin said something to him, and after being silent for a few seconds, he nodded. Seimeikage, I have to admit that I am very curious. Sarutobi's annoying voice made me shift my gaze from my team to redirect it to the old man, wanting to know what he was aiming for this time. Your people seem to come from many points and different origins, aren't you worried that this could cause you problems in the long run? No, there won't be any problems, I replied as if it were a fact. We are so united that we are practically family. That's good, the Hokage nodded, although my mantra betrays that he is not as satisfied as he seems by my answer, but rather annoyed. I remember you arrived with Tsunade and her apprentice, how did you meet? Right. I think Tsunade mentioned something about dismissing a citation from Anbu by Sarutobi. I guess he can only resort to Plan B to try to understand our relationship. The only reason he didn't ask until now was probably because Tsunade didn't wear a ring unlike my 3 women, and that must have ruled out the worst possibility from his point of view. Drinking one night, since he doesn't seem to be looking for anything too important, it's okay to answer him while I look away and look back at my team. I was making some music under the stars, and she was drawn to the melody, so we ended up sharing some drinks. Although her tolerance for alcohol should improve. And it was true, the cider I made was graded for the body I have from One Piece, where alcohol resistance is simply monstrous for iconic characters. When Tsunade took a sip of it the first time we met, she was so surprised that she coughed despite being a great drinker. Now she was more accustomed, but she still lost every drinking contest she challenged me to using this special cider. It was funny to see everyone's eyes widen when they heard that Tsunade doesn't handle alcohol as well as I do, turning my head back to look at me as if I were a beast. Except some, it seems she was more interested in the drink from how she swallowed saliva. It's interesting, there is little information about Kaiba's mother, and knowing that she likes to drink is one more curiosity to add to the discoveries I made when I finished in this world. That's it. I'll thank the Inuzuka matriarch for her donation with some jugs of good alcohol, and my conscience will be clear. I can say that it's an apology for the humiliating beating Kimimaro gave her son. No need to give anything to the Aberme clan, Shino wasn't even hurt, only a few thousand insects died. No, it would be more appropriate to say that they were immortalized for posterity. I think Sasori would approve of the sculpture. Chapter 87, So Troublesome. Sarutobi didn't seem too satisfied with the response, but as long as he wants to maintain his facade, he can't press the matter further without seeming controlling. The throbbing vein under his hat swelled a lot at not getting more details. And speaking of controllers, the few ninjas from Seimeigakure have been giving me critical looks for a while, and it's quite annoying. Can you stop staring at me like this? The monitors are on the wall, I told them directly. There was no response from them, they looked at each other, and I suppose they exchanged messages or something, because after nodding, they turned their gazes back to the screens. Are they questioning whether I will be a problem for their plan against Konoha? No way, I don't think I should bother too much with it, given how little they managed to do. My team ended up stealing the scroll from the Inoshikacho team, and although the Konoha genin aren't very injured, now I'm not sure if they'll make it to the semi-final. Hokage-sama. A Konoha ninja burst into the room. What's happening? Any problems with the exam? Sarutobi asked with a concerned expression. It's just, there's already a team in the tower, the ninja said, looking uneasy for some reason. Everyone, except me, was surprised and checked the clock to verify the time. 34 minutes, that was the time it took for the team to reach the tower despite having 3 days of margin. And everyone had the same thought. It's ridiculous. Even a Jonin needs at least an hour to reach the center of the tower from the outskirts of the forest. A genin team would do a great job if they could make it in less than 2 days. How the hell did they do it? Well, I'll go pick up my team then. I could feel the 3 waiting below with my mantra, so I'll go pick them up to prevent any tricks from the old folks. And how do you know it's your team and not another one that made it? Shikamaru's father asked, perhaps a bit annoyed by how everything unfolded. Simple, the others don't have the ability to achieve it, I affirmed casually, maybe sounding a bit arrogant in the process, but at the end of the day, it's the truth. I'm pretty sure they must have used Haku's fruit to get there so fast, the others are too focused on surviving traps, bears, and such. Yes, I think I sounded worse than I expected because everyone made a face at my statement. Well, the truth hurts, doesn't it? POV Shikaku Nara. Something is wrong with the people of Seimeigakure. It doesn't matter if they are the deserters, the genin, or their cage, I have the feeling that things are not as simple as some think, and the lack of information is a headache. The ninja who reported the situation, even with his performance, is easy to recognize as a subordinate of Danzo by his posture and gestures. And by the third Hokage's reaction. Damn it, they must have tried something with the Uzumaki women from Seimeigakure, and the shot must have backfired. Maybe they even thought of making the genin disappear in the forest of death when they were off camera, it would be totally Danzo's style. This is why it's so annoying to be uninformed, people make assumptions and castles in the air to plot their plans, and then wonder how they could fail. In the best situation, the Seimeikage or his people accuse us, and we simply deny involvement, claiming that they must be disguised foreign ninja. No evidence, so no crime. But given the big man's quick steps along with the look he gave the Hokage, I think there is a possibility that he is already aware of everything. Itaka's reports in the past mentioned that he could be a sensor ninja, but the range and ability were unknown. But he couldn't have been sensing what was happening outside the forest from here, right? My thought froze for a moment, and a drop of sweat slid down my forehead. No, it's actually viable, as ridiculous as it sounds. It's the only way he could have found out so quickly, and there are precedents for monstrous sensor ninja. Uzumaki Mito. Maybe that explains why his ears are like that, some side effect of the technique? This complicates things a lot. Should I inform the Hokage and, by extension, Danzo? Although it's just my hypothesis, taking some precautions might be necessary, and if a scandal arises from the attack, the villages will become hostile. No, forget that. Sarutobi and Danzo's little trick definitely just cost the village the possible alliance with Seimeigakure. Whether it's information exchange, trade, or any real benefit, it just went down the drain. And indirectly, it made their relationship with Kumigakure even stronger by finding a common enemy. Unless a 5th Hokage is named at last, there's no chance of redemption, and that's if the new one isn't a puppet of the previous one, as happened with the 4th Hokage, who didn't even have real power. I understood why they wanted the girls, and I didn't like it, but as a ninja, I understood. But if he really was such a strong censor, the estimate of his strength to back such an ability can't be less than the strength of a quasi-kage or a full kage. Plus, there was something even more worrying on the list. If my suspicions are correct and I pray to the sage that they are not, it's possible that the slug princess has deserted the village. And from how she arrived with them, it's clear where she went. After the box incident, I asked my friend to send the birds trained by the Yamanaka clan to check the Senju complex from the sky. It wasn't even necessary to intrude on the barrier protecting the place. The results were burned after I read them. The Senju complex was empty. And I don't mean that there was no one there, but rather that there was nothing inside. The garden of valuable medicines was completely dug up. Even the cemetery was emptied, not a single tombstone remained. Add to that the fact that Tsunade disappeared from the casino's radar after delivering the box. I can only say, why did it have to be Minato and not you? But I don't want to get involved in this mess caused by the Hokage and his secret lover, it's so problematic. Forget it, maybe it can be used to get rid of the old man who clings to power with nails and teeth and put someone capable under the hat. Wait, but Tsunade is gone, and qualified people only remain. So problematic. Chapter 88, Kidnappings. Karin, Haku, and Kimimaro were in the cafeteria, frowning at the food Konoha had prepared for the exam participants to replenish their strength, as if trying to find where the catch was. I can't blame them, after getting used to eating the good food from the Sky Island, what they can find here is simply inferior. Fortunately, Pakura anticipated the possibility and prepared bento boxes for everyone with great enthusiasm, and they could take them out at any time if they really couldn't stand it. Lord Enel. Upon seeing my arrival, their expressions lit up, and even Kimimaro stopped frowning. You did very well. I congratulated them without holding back. We didn't even have to get serious, Kimimaro said, shaking his head, visibly disappointed by the level of their opponents. We can fight later. Karin didn't care as much and preferred everything to unfold without unexpected problems. By the way, was the ninja wearing a disguise from Takigakure part of the hidden part of the test? It gave me an unpleasant feeling. Karin has her talent as a ninja censor, but I didn't expect her to notice Orochimaru. Too bad that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't teach her the mantra to enhance that ability further. No, that will be a problem for the Konoha ninjas, I denied. Did you remember to bring entertainment for these days in the tower? I brought medicine books. Karin pulled out a scroll and waved it in front of me. At a glance, I recognized it as the one I gave her about the nervous system, and on which her mother later applied some seals to prevent it from getting lost during her stay in Konoha. At my request, Tsunade made it clear to me over the years what Konoha's medical level is, and the content of this scroll alone is enough to drive the local medical community crazy. I wanted to train together, but there are too many cameras around here, Haku complained, knowing that he still shouldn't show all his cards. I'll have to think of something else, maybe make a cold dessert. Let me know if you want apples. I expected it. Pakura is infecting Haku with her enthusiasm for cooking, and given his ability, cold desserts and ice creams are his best terrain. I'll watch the others. Sensei will give me a beating if I underestimate them and end up losing because of my pride, Kimimaro concluded, shuddering at the idea. That's something a Jiraya would definitely do. In the end, they decided to take out the bento boxes and eat while we all chatted, explaining what they had found in the forest, such as animals and flowers. During the next 2 days, the other participants arrived at the tower, and to my surprise, the team from Otagakure was disqualified after Shikamaru's team ambushed them and took their scroll. Ironic, weren't 2 of them their opponents in the semifinals? Zaku faced Shino then, but both Kin and Dosoa faced Shikamaru and Koji with 1 win and 1 loss each. It seems that the numbers will be similar to the original story, with my team taking Otagakure's place. Now the question is whether their opponents will be the same or if they will manipulate, even more, the results. Something interesting? Temari has been hanging around the team for quite some time. She looks at me with a complicated look, but also at Haku with an envious gaze. Later, Haku told me while we were having dinner that the Tsunade Kunoichi had approached him secretly to ask for advice on skincare and hair care. I almost spat out my dinner from the laughter it gave me, seriously. Yes, even Temari didn't realize that Haku was a man despite their conversation. I see what she's doing, but I can only resign myself and feel a second of pity for the ignorant. Who would expect Haku to be corrupted in this way? In another series of events, Maki, Fu, and even Mikoto have received their own attempted kidnappings. While all were easily thwarted, I admit that their audacity has bothered me a lot. The ninjas who attacked Mikoto and Fu ended up being treated by Tsunade and Seimeikage. All of them were ninja with the seal on their tongues, so the perpetrator was undoubtedly Danzo. But it was the ones from Seimeigakure who tried to take Maki, and it turns out that Pakura didn't take it well. The next morning, a group of mummies identified as Seimeigakure ninjas appeared in their own hotel, and everyone got the message. I had to leave the tower for a while each day to be with Anko. The return has been more bearable for her than I expected, and she was still able to contact some old friends without complications, but she has still received a lot of bad attitudes and wanted to give them a good scare by seeing me there in person. Maybe they'll think I have something like the Flying Thunder God technique, who knows. The point is that when the Hokage found out about my appearances outside the tower, he ordered a search for seals in the village to check if it was really something similar. Obviously, they didn't find anything, but their actions made the remaining Seimeigakure ninjas nervous. Yes, those who are not in the tower and didn't end up as mummies. I realized that Shikamaru was still watching the other participants despite not doing anything special, so I approached to teach him to play the flute as a hobby so that he wouldn't get bored. He can make a flute easily with his bones, something that Kabuto later demonstrated with his weird thing in the stomach after the transformation. Shikamaru doesn't have much creative talent with music from what I saw, but repeating hand movements following the tempo is not a problem for a qualified ninja, so he learned 3 or 4 songs that he liked during this time. We were eating apple ice cream that Haku made at the moment they called us for the third test, that is, the semifinals. Looking at the situation, it seems strange to me that besides the team from Otagakure, there haven't been more changes, but then I remember the speed at which they arrived, and I realize that there simply wasn't time for them to affect the others. Oh, right, Orochimaru did his number in the forest, but I simply don't care as long as he stays away from my little ninjas. Although this time it took longer for them to find out about his intrusion since Anko wasn't involved in the whole thing. Tsunade is clear about where my line is after all these years, and she knows that if I ended up moving against her old teammate, it's because he asked for it eagerly, and she can only pray that it's quick. Kabuto withdraws under my perplexed gaze, and I must say that it's incredible that no one noticed how bad his performance was. Since he revealed his beloved ninja cards with arrogance, the examiners must have wondered how the hell a participant had sensitive information like the number of missions performed by each person. Because from what I heard from Seimeikage and company, this was sensitive information for various reasons, and the villages were very careful to keep these records confidential. We barely did something like those missions over the years, but Anko and Mariko kept a record of how many ninjas had been hunted, the money they contributed to our coffers, their strength rank, and by whom they fell. And it works quite well for us. It's not that we lack money with the gold mine, but having cash on hand is always good. Now we have a room full of bills, and people just take what they need, they just have to write in the accounting book when they use it. I see the man with the cough coming down, so they must have finished the speech and will proceed to draw lots for the fights. I looked at the screen, and I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the names that appear on it. Sasuke vs Shikamaru. Chapter 89, Heavenly Mirrors. It's as if the universe wants Sasuke to fail. I mean, currently, the boy is under the effects of receiving Orochimaru's cursed seal and will be unable to mold chakra for a short period, forcing him to give up the use of ninjutsu and genjutsu. Using taijutsu against Shikamaru? It's like asking Koji for the last potato in the bag, it just won't work. Indeed, as expected from Konoha. Not to lose face, they still let someone in his condition try, despite knowing his slim chances. Both of you, come down to the arena for the match, called the referee, who could use a cough drop. Shikamaru jumped and landed smoothly in place, while Sasuke seemed to have the same idea, but Kakashi took him by the arm and made him descend the stairs, surely not wanting others to notice Sasuke's condition. Let's get this over with quickly, Sasuke said, trying to maintain a strong front. Sasuke Uchiha. Shikamaru looked him up and down and sighed. I guess I'll have to restrain myself to not hurt you too much. We all saw how the vein on Sasuke's forehead swelled, so, do these things really happen? I thought it was a myth. Those from the village understand that Shikamaru is being kind to Sasuke solely because of Mikoto. Seimeikage may be his sensei, but their relationship is more about respect and some fear. Mikoto's motherhood, on the other hand, even in her state, was able to touch Shikamaru, and I think she even feels a bit of envy for Sasuke. Well, being honest, almost anything was better than his previous state as a weapon of the Kagaya clan. I'm going to make you eat your words. Sasuke growled. At Heiat's signal, both started to fight. When they were only a meter apart, Kimimaro essentially turned into a spinning porcupine of bones, while Sasuke was caught off guard. What kind of lunatic uses the bones of their body to fight? I'm sure he thinks something like that, it's written on his face. He tried to move away and throw some shurikens and kunao, but Kimimoro's bones simply blocked them easily with the sound of metal clashing against metal. It was only then that Sasuke seemed to realize that Kimimoro's bones were not white. In fact, this seemed to have caught the attention of Sarutobi, who was watching with great interest, and Orochimaru. The fight really had no suspense. Sasuke still tried to face Kimimaro with taijutsu while holding a kunao, but the offense he received from his side was too aggressive, and he lacked means to counter effectively. Added to his weakened state and driven by desperation, he tried to use the power of the cursed seal to try his new move, Lion's Barrage. Let's say it wasn't a great idea. In the end, they took him away unconscious on a medical stretcher while he had several holes in his feet and legs, with no real permanent damage, but it is estimated that he will only fully recover within 2 months. So, Sasuke is out, definitively. Sakura and Naruto's screams followed immediately, but Kakashi scolded both of them on the head before leaving, surely to use the evil sealing method on Sasuke. Should I remove the cursed seal he has, as I did with Anko years ago? I'll see if Konoha is willing to foot the bill after I meet with Sarutobi to settle scores for their attempted kidnappings in the village. The next match was Shino vs Yoruichi, with Shino's victory as in the canon. Then came 3 more, identical to the story with Kankuro against, the guy who looks like Luffy, forgot his name. Followed by Sakura vs Ino's fight and ending with Temari's one-sided beating of Tenten. I must point out that looking at her life trajectory, Tenten is the perfect example of a successful average civilian-born kunoichi. Now, if everything were as in the original, the Shikamaru vs Kin match would follow. Still, since the Otagakure team is out, instead of Kin, the person called was Shikamaru vs Haku. Both descended into the arena after being cleaned of Tenten's weapons, and they looked at each other. While Haku smiled and looked at him calmly, Shikamaru frowned and sighed heavily. Fighting against a woman is so troublesome. You're right, so just surrender, and no one will be hurt, Haku nodded, offering him the opportunity to surrender gracefully and avoid the fight while everyone is happy. This. Shikamaru's gaze wandered to the area where Sarutobi was, and he shook his head. Forget it, if I surrendered now, my mom would be even more troublesome. Pity, Haku sighed, regretting having to go through with the fight. Why don't you surrender instead? Shikamaru probed, using the same tactic as Haku. We can avoid the fight, you don't seem very willing, either. In other circumstances, I would really like to accept your proposal, Haku nodded, before denying it afterward. But someone has faith in me, and I don't want to disappoint them, so forgive me. You can rest assured I'll be gentle. Shikamaru felt that those words weren't quite right for some reason, but he shook his head and adopted a more serious stance. At the referee's signal, Shikamaru threw several shurikens at complicated angles, and his opponent dodged them easily. Haku took out a scroll and unfolded it to reveal the word water inside. He injected chakra into the scroll and threw it into the sky, where a large amount of water exploded like rain on them. Shikamaru frowned at the rain but didn't take his eyes off Haku to prevent any tricks when he was distracted. Throwing the scroll so high wasn't necessary and could be a method to redirect the enemy's attention. Ino's father used to come to their house to drink with his father sometimes, complaining about how difficult it was to get information from Seimeigakure, so he didn't have much knowledge to work with and had to learn and analyze on the fly. Haku performed a crossed tiger seal and shouted. Secret Jutsu, Celestial Ice Mirrors. Shikamaru watched in amazement as the water that had fallen in the arena under the opponent's technique cooled down and formed a dome of 21 mirrors made of ice. 12 on the ground, 8 above the first 12, angled toward the ground, and the final mirror is above the others and toward the ground. These mirrors reflected light and were so thin that they didn't cast a single shadow, which was counterproductive for the Nara clan's technique. But the worst part was when the opponent extended a hand towards the nearest mirror and seemed to enter it, only for their reflection to appear in all the mirrors, and Shikamaru couldn't locate the real person. Yuki clan. Shikamaru recognized Haku's ice release Kekii Genkai, but it didn't stop, and he ran to try to get out of the dome. It's useless. How could Haku allow such a thing? Senbons began to appear in Shikamaru's body as Haku moved at great speed between the mirrors, but no one could see his real body. Hokage-sama, one of the Jonins next to the third Hokage called him. Yes, I noticed, Sarutobi looked seriously at Haku's movements. His speed is so extraordinary that my eyes can't see his body, I only see a streak of light that doesn't even cast a single shadow that young Shikamaru could take advantage of. Perhaps only someone like Sasuke, who possesses the Sharingan, would have a chance to follow the movements of the other party, he sighed. Too bad, it seems the chances of winning are quite small. And as he predicted, the fight came to an end when Shikamaru was unable to move due to the large number of senbons in precise places on his body, causing the referee to declare Haku's victory. Don't worry, once I remove them, you'll be able to move in an hour, Haku reassured Shikamaru, crouching down beside him as he began to retrieve his favorite weapons. Chapter 90, You're Not. Shikamaru simply couldn't have gotten a worse opponent due to the devil fruit. Haku possessed the light fruit of Borsalino. Back then, I wondered how to maximize Haku's combat power, and after much deliberation, I decided to give him this fruit for the simple reason that he could use ice as mirrors to reflect light. Not only that, he could also shoot laser beams and cause massive explosions. He only needed to discreetly create an ice mirror the size of a coin, and light refraction could be lethal for his opponent. Plus, the wound would be cauterized by the heat of the laser beam, so there wouldn't be overly bloody scenes for Haku. Add the ability to travel at the speed of light from one place to another, it seemed like an excellent choice, almost tailor-made for Haku. That's why giving him a fruit like Aokiji's is such a big mistake, like giving Doflamingo's fruit to a puppeteer from Suna. It's flashy and adds very little if you think about it carefully and objectively. Not to mention that many things could be easily imitated. The Ice Age can be achieved with enough chakra. Next was the match between Naruto and Kaiba, A&D. Wait, does it not seem like that? Naruto vs Karin. I'm 100% sure this was deliberate. Do they want to see what Karin is capable of? Or is it Danzo's doing? I'll really have a talk with these old folks later. I thought I'd be against the Hyuga, Karin complained disheartenedly. Either of them. That would have been more interesting. But no, I had to get this one. She refrained from mentioning that we knew about Naruto's Jinchuriki condition, like the rest of the world, but I must point out that when Mariko and Karin found out about Naruto's existence, well, it's more complicated. Come down right now, redhead. Naruto shouted as he pointed at her with a proud expression. It's time for me to take revenge for Sasuke, or my name isn't Naruto Uzumaki. You're not an Uzumaki. Like someone had stepped on her tail, Karin jumped into the arena shouting angrily, her hair starting to stand up for reasons that go against physics. You're nothing more than a half-breed who would shame the clan in every way. Even the color of your hair isn't right. She continued shouting, clenching and waving her fists threateningly. How much Uzumaki lineage can you have? Does it even reach 0.01%? What do you know about the history of the clan? Do you know or have any interest in Fuinjutsu? And you don't seem very smart. Naruto's shocked expression was evident to everyone, and I think it's fortunate that Kakashi isn't present, or else I think he might have to stop him. As for Karin's intense reaction, Mariko came with me once to the village during one of my visits to Mikoto because she wanted to see the child who shared her last name. But upon feeling Naruto, she discovered that he had almost no Uzumaki blood in his veins, as if the lineage had been diluted over hundreds of generations, and he hadn't even inherited the special chakra for which Kushina was selected as a Jinchuriki. It was more like Kushina had sealed part of her special chakra inside the seal itself before dying. According to the Uzumaki clan standards, Naruto was such a distant relative that even the clan would consider him a stranger and had no rights to inheritance or political protection. That didn't make much sense to me. Kushina seemed to be a very Uzumaki woman. So, I took some genetic samples from Naruto's apartment and found out that during the pregnancy phase, Kushina must have received some questionable vaccines, probably thinking or being told they were something else, that caused Minato's lineage to take almost complete dominance in the early stages of embryonic formation. So in reality, Karin is right, he should be called Naruto Namikaze. The only thing he inherited from his mother, based on the microscopic amount of Uzumaki DNA in his body, is probably his love for ramen, nothing more. Later, Karin found out that an idiot was proclaiming that he was an Uzumaki, and of course, she didn't like the clan's reputation falling even further. People say blood is thicker than water, well, for Karin, Naruto doesn't even have water. So despite knowing about Naruto's difficulties, her rage at his embarrassing behavior calling himself an Uzumaki outweighed the pity she felt for him. Ah! Naruto reacted a bit later. You're just saying nonsense to distract me and try to beat me. Let me tell you, you have no chance against me, the future Hokage. Mr. Enel, Karin turned while gritting her teeth and started to release killing intent. Can't I really kill him? This blonde idiot is driving me crazy. The Konoha ninjas tensed at the declaration because they could tell Karin was very serious about killing her Jinchuriki. I reflected as everyone looked at me. Let off some steam if you want, just don't leave him with permanent damage. Hey! Naruto looked at me with a scowl. Do you think a girl can beat me, the great Naruto Uzumaki? I'll defeat her in less than 10 minutes and be one step closer to becoming Hokage, believe it. Damn, the kid really is a lost cause. Does he have to keep provoking Karin like this? And indeed, Karin is like a volcano about to erupt. She didn't even respond, just stared at Naruto with a scowl until the referee signaled to start. Naruto crossed his hands and prepared to perform his cloning technique, but he was in the middle of shouting his move when Karin aimed her palms at him, sending a wave of magma rushing towards Naruto and burying him alive. He screamed in pain as his flesh melted into the magma, revealing his bones. Or that would have happened if Hayate hadn't jumped and saved Naruto when the magma was inches away from his body. However, he didn't escape without getting some drops on his clothes that burned him and left some small burns on his body. TCH. Karin clicked her tongue disgusted. Karin. I called with a reprimanding tone, but she knows I'm not taking it seriously. Oh, right, no killing him, Karin stuck out her tongue playfully. Sorry. I forgot. The others present sweated, not only because of that personality shift and because they could feel the heat still emanating from the magma from their positions, but because everyone realized that Karin didn't even need to make seals to launch such a destructive ninjutsu. She was still standing in the magma without even breaking a sweat. Sarutobi breathed a sigh of relief seeing that Naruto had only taken a good scare and some minor burns, while looking with great interest at Karin. It seems Anko's card must be played later, she has to get that Uzumaki for the village. It's just, she seems to feel no affection for Naruto despite being family. How strange. Chapter 91, Unfinished Destiny. As Naruto left the field to change his pants, orange is truly a bad choice, it highlights stains too much, accompanied by a medical ninja to treat his wounds. The rest of the matches continued once the magma cooled down with water jutsu, and the field cleared. Next up is the match between Neji and Hinata, and oh, Hinata is looking this way. Does she perhaps remember me from when I gave her the apple? It's been a few years. I waved to her, and she nodded determinedly. I'm not sure why, but I nodded back. Now is when Neji has to come on. Don't look at me with narrowed eyes, Sarutobi Hiruzen. It gives me chills. He must have a conspiracy theory or something in his mind. As I was saying, forget it, the match has already started, and things are, more even than I expected. Despite facing criticism from her cousin, Hinata seems to be warming up and returning the blows with more force than I would expect from her. Neji clearly didn't expect Hinata to put up such a fight, and he's getting impatient, striking in a way that seems. She's doing it on purpose, isn't she? Haku asked me. Yes, she's leading him by the nose too easily, Kimimaro confirmed as he watched the confrontation. She's provoking him, Karin rubbed her chin thoughtfully after calming down now that the blonde was out of her sight. I guess the other Hyuga is from the branch family, otherwise, he wouldn't be so aggressive against the heiress. What's your evaluation of her? I asked the three of them. She has a kind heart, Haku replied, as if she saw herself in Hinata. She has a goal, Kimimaro affirmed. She has issues, Karin concluded, to which the other two turned to look at her. What? The fact that someone from the same clan sees her in such an aggressive way shows they have serious internal problems. As the heiress, she'll need to confront them sooner or later. Karin, she's right, I nodded. Although you all have a point, Karin has raised a key issue. The Hyuga clan's caged bird seal is intentionally flawed in both design and function. In fact, I'm surprised this kid still has the seal when anyone can buy the Byakugan nowadays. And where would that be possible? We heard from behind us. The kids turned to see a man smoking, accompanied by a chubby boy who eats potato chips non-stop. It's rude to listen to other people's conversations, Haku pointed out calmly while her eyes checked what flavor of chips Koji was eating. I'm curious too, it smells like country potatoes, those with tomato and garlic. Pretty good, but if there's too much salt, it turns terrible. I'm sorry, it happened that we were close, and I accidentally overheard, so I couldn't resist asking, Asuma replied, although everyone present can see that it's just an excuse. You were 20 meters away from us just a minute ago, Kimimaro exposed, very observant of where each person is in the room. Do you want to trade? Karin asked Koji as she pulled out a bag of crispy fried apple slices. Koji thought for a moment that he had misheard. A girl wants to trade snacks with him? Sure. He agreed without hesitation. The apple slices were clearly homemade, and he was very curious about their taste since he had never eaten them this way before. Ahem. Asuma cleared his throat to refocus on the topic. Oh, the answer to that is... Wow, Hinata won. I turned with a surprised expression despite having been watching with mantra the whole time. And my surprise is genuine. Just like my change of topic. Okay, Hinata seems to be on the verge of collapse and covered in bruises, but Neji is lying on the ground unable to move his limbs properly. Did the match reverse, and was it Hinata who struck his tenketsus or whatever they're called? I can't help but applaud her. Even if Hinata's strength improved for some reason compared to the original, it's a fact that Neji had significant talent and dedication that would be difficult to overcome. And she did it. Hinata hears my applause as well as those who join from my team, and she smiles at me before fainting. Thank goodness she doesn't need to fight again, or she would be out. Later, I'll feed her a golden apple in secret to help her recover. If they later come looking for me, I'll just say I'm a great medic. I feel Sarutobi's gaze again, and this time I don't even bother turning to look at him, I just raise my middle finger discreetly for him to see and hear him choke on his smoke. Good. Gaara's fight against Lee bores me. While Kimimaro and Karin watched Lee's taijutsu with curiosity, when they found out he was still using weights during the test, both slapped their foreheads while sighing exasperatedly. Why do the ninjas in this village seem to have brain problems? Karin wondered. I wanted to tell her that the stupidest part hasn't even arrived yet, but I let them see the surprise. He's going to end up with bone fragments in his spine, Kimimaro concluded very professionally, one of the greatest bone experts present. Yes, I don't think he can continue being a ninja after that, Karin agreed. In this case, I must point out that using a technique that will make you stop being a ninja without enough mastery, to prove that using only taijutsu you can be a ninja, is quite illogical. But well, Lee and Guy's brain circuits are unique, just like their hairstyle. Give him a golden apple too? Why? Just because he's a character in the series? I don't know him, and I don't care. In fact, it was Guy who almost finished Madara, not him. As far as I'm concerned, Lee can stop being a ninja and become a taijutsu teacher at the academy. The next generations of Konoha will have a higher survival rate on their first missions, thanks to the physique they got from the crazy teacher with bushy eyebrows who will continue yelling at them that the sand is evil. Chapter 92, Unreliable Allies. The latest fight has caught my interest, and it's Kaiba, along with Akamaru, facing off against Koji in an elimination match. Both use completely different styles of taijutsu, and I want to know who will win. Unfortunately, the suspense disappeared when Kaiba, who didn't learn his lesson after facing Kimimaro, decided to use his biting tongue to call Koji fat, resulting in him and his canine partner getting crushed by Koji's body expansion technique. Seriously, their silhouettes were clearly defined in the sand when they were pulled out. One would expect that being raised in a clan that collaborates with animals, his agility would be greater, but I'll say in his defense that the field is limited, Akamaru is still young, and Koji's size increase worked against them. Although it's also true that Koji doesn't have great control over his spins, he could have worked with that, but now it's too late. So, the finalists are decided. Kimimaro Shino Haku Karin Kankuro Hinata Temari Gaara Koji. Naturally, my team passed without any problems. Now, the combination of fights in a month can be entertaining if there's not too much manipulation, and. Who am I kidding? Rather, should I be concerned that Tsunade will bet? It's been a while since she did that, and I don't want her to have a relapse. Focusing on learning cutting-edge medicine from me has kept her positively occupied so far. Although she still drinks as always. I'm rambling, I have more important things to do next, like demanding explanations from some elders about kidnapping people who can't afford it. Third Hokage I called once he finished explaining the last phase of the exam and was preparing to leave, appearing behind him and startling him a bit. I think we need to talk about something important. Is tomorrow morning okay with you? I'm not going to leave my team here alone, and I still have to secretly heal Hinata, so even though giving politicians time to prepare is not usually a good option, I have some ideas to twist whatever they're planning. Something important? He replied with a puzzled look, an old actor. Yes, given that dignitaries, representatives, and others won't arrive for at least another week, I'm sure you have a time window to talk before you're irreversibly busy, I explained clearly. Very well, tomorrow at 10 in the morning in my office, he nodded before proceeding to leave. Let's see, I have to settle scores for the attempt to kidnap Nimue, Fu, and Mikoto. Maki? No, those were from Seimeigakure. I could try to make Konoha take the blame, but there are witnesses to what happened, and it just wouldn't hold up. Fu and Nimue are practically my daughters, and I like Mikoto, so, what should I demand from the old man? The next morning, in the Hokage's office, I considered bringing Tsunade with me just to poke fun at Sarutobi with her presence, but I wasn't in the mood to see the old man face to face, and respecting his feelings, I had to bring someone else. Seimeigakure thought about it and refused to participate in boring negotiations, even though I tried to make her understand that wasn't the idea. Pakura wanted to come, but she abstained because she knew she wasn't completely calm about Maki's situation and didn't feel at ease if she didn't keep an eye on the kids. She's like a mother hen whose egg was almost stolen, and now she'll be on high alert for a while. So Anko is sitting next to me, with a smile on her pretty lips that betrays how much she's enjoying the situation in front of Sarutobi, advisors Koharu and Homura, and Danzo. Why did Anko have to come? First, for obvious reasons that I don't think need to be reminded, it couldn't be any other adult like Mariko, Shizuan, or Mikoto. Second, if there's anyone who knows how this geriatric group behaves, it's the one who was repressed by them. It also helps that she has more up-to-date knowledge of the village, and Tsunade will help her gather information on some matters or dirty laundry. Third, thanks to the ring on her finger that glows so provocatively, they can't bring up certain issues if they're smart, or they'll just give me political ammunition to attack them. Let's start the meeting. Sarutobi stopped looking at Anko and turned to look at me, as did the rest of those present. What matter did you wish to discuss? Well, I would like an explanation for the 3 attempts of kidnapping by your village on my people, and then, offer me compensation for emotional damages. I got straight to the point. This office has spent so many years exposed to the 3rd Hokage's pipe that the smell of tobacco permeates the walls, and I don't want to stay here longer than necessary. I don't know what you're talking about. What kidnappings? Sarutobi asked calmly. As far as I know, your group is enjoying tourism in the village. That's right, you can't accuse us of something like that without consequences. Homura said loudly, trying to seem threatening, trying. Look, even though juggling words and deceit may be your hobby, I don't want to be in this place longer than necessary. Because it stinks, and I have better ways to enjoy my time, I said, clasping my hands while Anko laughed, understanding what I meant. So, can we be honest and finish quickly? You claim there were kidnappings, so, at least you'll have evidence of it, right? Koharu interrupted. Darling, do you mind? I turned my head slightly to address Anko. She nodded, smiling, understanding what I meant, and pulled out a bag before tossing it on the table, causing it to open, and the others present to widen their eyes. These are the frozen tongues of the men who attempted the kidnappings, I explained, pointing with my finger to the clearly visible seal on them. You see, using a seal to prevent information leakage can be useful in many cases, but when everyone knows that this is your seal, an exclusive seal of your men. I changed the direction of my finger to point at Danzo. It goes from being a safeguard of information to evidence of the crime. I don't know what you're talking about. Those seals could have been placed after obtaining some random tongues. They prove nothing. Danzo replied firmly. Of course, because surely many people know the sealing technique used on members of Root, I retorted, raising an eyebrow, making it clear that his evasion of responsibility was more than ineffective. Anything else to add? And how would you know that seal is from Root? Koharu asked once again. Tsunade, I simply replied, causing her to widen her eyes. She may not want to come, but I can throw her under the bus without problems if necessary. Her words, if it makes them upset, use my name without hesitation. I think there must be some kind of misunderstanding, understanding that they can't wash their hands of the matter. Sarutobi now wants to minimize or divert the issue while glancing at Danzo. Something like complex communication through a glance, thanks to their years of closeness and mutual feelings? Perverts. My men found rumors of people being kidnapped, coerced, and manipulated. Danzo started to come up with an explanation after some well-disguised moments of reflection. Let's see where this goes. So, I was only extending the goodwill of the village to try to help the victims. Help the victims, I repeated with a flat tone and a stoic look, by kidnapping them all. The Uzumaki woman showed all the signs of being under a genjutsu, so I had to take a more direct approach. Danzo continued, I guess he's referring to Nimue. The simplest method to free someone from an illusion is to disrupt that person's chakra with your own, right? A genjutsu. Anko was covering her mouth to try to resist laughing at the blatant excuse. Koharu and Homura frowned at her for it, but we simply didn't care. Then the identity of the Seven Tails Jinchuriki was recognized, who disappeared from our ally Takigakure years ago. Danzo narrowed his unbandaged eye. Helping an ally is Konoha's duty, so why do you have Takigakure's Jinchuriki with you? Oh, now he's trying to turn it around and make me defend myself, a classic. Just like you helped his Seimeigakure? I replied with a big smile. One could almost swear they heard the sound of a whip materializing in the deafening silence that followed. Chapter 93, A Clarification. Note that readers comment that the writing style changed, so I will explain. In the original version, Spanish, I used the, in the dialogues, and when I went through the chat translation, it changed it to, automatically. From my point of view it didn't make a difference and I continued uploading the chapters. I don't know how many chapters there will be like this and I won't start re-editing all of them, too much effort and time would end up turning a hobby into a hassle, but I think you can easily handle the difference. I've read much worse things and that's nothing for hardened fanfic readers who have Uchiha blood, since bleeding the eyes makes them stronger. I don't look for perfection, because that would limit me. It's definitely not because I'm lazy, not at all. Chapter 94, Compensation for Emotional Damage. That's not the same, everything was very complicated back then, and you're too young to understand it, Sarutobi said after a while of silence, using the conveniently age-related excuse. But you still haven't explained why you have Takigakure's Jinchuriki with you. Correction, we don't have, nor do I know, any Jinchuriki from Takigakure, I replied while straightening my back a bit. We only have the Jinchuriki from Seimeigakure. And where did she come from? Homura asked sarcastically. I found her abandoned in the wilderness, can you believe it? I said, surprising everyone present except Anko. The poor thing was lying in a dirty crib, inside an abandoned house, surrounded by cold waterfalls with no one taking care of her. Being a person with a good heart, I decided it was too cruel to leave her there and adopted her as my foster daughter. So, I am very upset about your attempted kidnapping, I said as some sparks crackled around me, causing those present to tense a bit. Basically, I just told them to their faces that I'm the one who took her and that trying to reason with me in that regard won't do them any good, apart from earning themselves a headache. I don't think Takigakure will share the same opinion, Koharu said, trying to regain control of the conversation. Why should I care about their opinion? I asked with a confused expression. They have nothing to do with this. Since they have hit a wall and clearly, I won't be reasonable, they can only change their approach. Which one will they choose? Enough! Danzo shouted, fed up with the game, which they are losing, while Sarutobi remains silent, clearly trying to maintain his facade of a good person in the office. Do you think that just because we haven't taken action against Anko Mitarashi, you can do whatever you want? Enlighten me. Danzo didn't realize he had just stepped on a mine. What do you expect to happen next? We can accept the transfer of Anko to your village, Danzo said generously, under the condition that a seal is placed on her brain to block information from Konoha, and in return, people from the Uzumaki clan are transferred for their protection and education in our village. Perhaps we couldn't save their land, but they are still our allies. I can't believe he has the audacity to say that. Sure, you just have to add to the deal the scroll of seals from Konoha, the property deeds of all the clan lands, deliver all the secret ninjutsu of those same clans, and the Uzumaki scrolls that you recovered in the past, I replied. That's impossible. Koharu interrupted, standing up and hitting the table with the palm of her hand. Do you really think we'll agree to something so absurd? Absurd? My tone is low as the elders feel their skin crawl due to the static charge in the office air. And what do you think you're saying? I shouted, expanding my voice as if holding a megaphone while also hitting the table and leaving a clear depression with my hand on the solid oak wood, slightly charred. Fortunately for them, the office seals conversations so that they don't leak outside. Not only do you have the balls to try to kidnap my daughters and my people, but you still proclaim with justice that you're doing it for their own good. Anko disappears from her chair and positions herself behind the two advisors with a kunao in each hand against their necks. Then you demand to put a seal on my wife's brain, for keeping secrets? My tone reflects pure mockery. What you want is to access her mind to get information from my village. Oh, do you think I don't know how desperate you are for some more information after years of fruitless searching? It must be eating away at you to have our file practically blank. But if that weren't enough, on top of that, you want to lay your hands on them, the only surviving members of the pure-blood Uzumaki clan, not like that defective and mistreated product you allow to use the clan name. Did you really think I wouldn't know what plans you have for them? Lower those kunows, Anko ordered Sarutobi with a serious expression. Why should I listen to you? Anko only showed him her teeth in another one of those beautiful smiles of hers. Let's all take a step back. Sarutobi raised his palm as a sign of surrender and stayed like that for a while before putting on a puzzled expression, which he quickly disguised. Did he think he couldn't find the ANBU stationed nearby? I gave them a dose of an experimental medicine from Karin, one of her early projects without my help, so now they must be crouched behind a bush while cursing whoever did this to them for the 100th time. It will take them about 2 hours to even stand up, even with their training to resist poisons and drugs. A gut-wrenching scream echoed in the office as I held a bloody eye in my hand, without anyone noticing when I moved. This is a warning, I said as I examined the eye with a red pupil in front of everyone, with Sarutobi shocked not only because he couldn't react or probably recognized the eye's pattern as Shisui's, but also must be questioning why Danzo wanted to use the terrible technique sealed in the eye as a ninja. Getting and transplanting another eye won't be a problem, so you don't need this one, I said as I incinerated the eye directly in front of everyone. I would be quite upset if Danzo decided to use this eye on my people, so it's better that it disappears. I know it's unlikely, the idiot could have used it on Sarutobi years ago to become the Shadow Hokage, and for some reason, he never did. But I prefer to be sure, I'm the one immune to illusions, not the others. Now, this is what will happen next if you don't want a war not only with my village but also with Seimeigakure, which will gladly participate, I said as I took a seat again, and Anko withdrew the kunows to surround the advisors and sit on my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck as she rested her head on my chest. Since you declare yourselves allies of the Uzumaki clan, the scrolls you've been guarding for so long will be handed over to recover the legacy you lost. This is not up for discussion, I emphasized when I saw that Sarutobi wanted to interrupt. In addition to that, Naruto will change his last name to Namikaze, renouncing being called Uzumaki. Finally, Konoha will hand over an S-rank technique from the scroll of seals, that Futon, vacuum sphere. I raised my palm and unleashed a blast strong enough to destroy the compressed wind bullets that Danzo launched, recovering from the shock of losing that eye with no chance of getting it back. Alright, now it will be 2 S-rank techniques, I corrected as another blast shot from my knee and hit Danzo squarely, causing him to spasm on the floor and be temporarily paralyzed. You see, the beauty of Izanagi is that unless it receives a too significant injury or dies, it doesn't make much sense to use it. And since I took Shisui's eye before he could even activate the technique, he can't restore that eye. So, paralyzing or sealing its user is usually effective because why waste a life, or eye in his case, for a bit of humiliation? Danzo won't do it, he's one of those who think waiting a few years for revenge is acceptable. You can't drag Seimeigakure into this, Sarutobi exclaimed, clenching his fists under the table, surely controlling himself, knowing that his old friend isn't actually injured and not wanting a big problem, or scandal, during the Chunin exams that would make Konoha the laughingstock of the ninja world. If only he knew that it doesn't depend on me. I can pay enough to make it profitable, and I'll let you keep the land you manage to bite. Still think so? There it is, the tick in the eye that shows he knows they would really be screwed if I can offer the Reikage a legitimate excuse to attack. Fine, Konoha will apologize for the misunderstanding and return the Uzumaki legacy it has been holding onto. I also agree to hand over the 2 techniques in the hope that this allows us to start fresh between our villages. After almost 10 minutes of silence, during which Anko almost fell asleep, Sarutobi agrees to my demands with the ugliest smile I've ever seen. Certainly, in his heart, he has other thoughts. They'll only last a month. Works for me. The atmosphere instantly relaxes after my positive response. Just 2 small reminders. I'm good at knowing if someone is lying, so I hope the Uzumaki legacy is handed over completely and without omissions or alterations. Just like the 2 S-rank techniques. Homura and Koharu are the ones with the eye twitch now, so they were thinking of playing a trick right there. Hey? I'll make sure Mariko checks them anyway. What techniques do you want? Sarutobi asked with a tired expression. I'm sure he's thinking something like, I'm too old for this shit. I think I'll ask for a second opinion. I don't know much about Konoha after all. I lower my head to look at Anko. Any suggestions? Anko this time uses a big Cheshire cat smile and slowly says the names of the techniques, which, of course, we agreed on beforehand. This performance is just to raise the blood pressure of those present, her idea. And indeed, they turn pale when they hear the names coming from Anko's lips. I think the impure world reincarnation and the flying thunder god should be enough. Chapter 95, Hunt and Torture. I can't believe it, did Sarutobi really give us both techniques honestly? I wanted to scam him for a bunch of different things, this wasn't the original plan. I have the knowledge of Orochimaru and Kabuto in my head, why would I want the defective version of the impure world reincarnation when I have the perfected one? I mean, due to the Hinata incident, I knew he would agree because, in summary, Konoha wouldn't lose much by complying, given that both techniques probably can't be used unless a genius in their respective fields is found. I wanted him to reject to propose other demands, that's usually how it works. You say something impossible, then the other side refuses, and both settle on a desirable range of compensation. Anko confirmed that the impure world reincarnation is genuine, courtesy of her time as Orochimaru's apprentice. More of something she accidentally learned while secretly reviewing her notes, taking the wrong ones. I can also see that it's real, but the view from the scroll is annoying. As for the flying thunder god, ironic that I'm the one who got it, Tsunade stared at me for a while when she confirmed it was genuine. I guess it will be a decent gain, but I'll have to modify it if we want to use it, everyone except me. Mikoto confirmed that the Uzumaki scrolls delivered a week later are the originals, which surprises me because I thought they would just give us the copies without much thought. Although I'm sure there's still some scroll missing, as the technique to establish and control the barrier around Konoha was not found. I can't help but wonder if they have plans against us once the Chunin exams are over. Well, it doesn't matter. Sarutobi won't live beyond that, I know Danzo en route won't appear during the attack, and I hope to eliminate him while Pakura steals the seal scroll and Seimeigakure. Let's say that the advisors Koharu and Homura won't be able to see each other again after that day, courtesy of an unknown but evident Tsunade ninja, judging by the traces that will be left at the scene. Like a handful of sand over their heads, very subtle. For a reason, she's one of the best stealth assassins in the world. Yes, I also hallucinated when she showed me how capable she is of not making someone scream or explode. One would expect that after what happened in Seimeigakure, her hobby would be to go through the battlefield with Kaiba amid blood and lightning, but it turns out that's just her favorite facet, not the only one. I love discovering more about the woman I love. Am I doing Konoha a favor by beheading its corrupt leaders? I don't know, I'm just killing the dog to warn the monkeys. Or at least, I think that's how the saying goes. Wait, if they don't know it was us, how exactly does this warning work? I'm rambling again, anyway, we'll just kill them, and they won't bother us anymore because surely, after what happened, they'll try something at some point. As for why we're stealing Konoha's seal scroll, it wasn't my idea. When Pakura remembered the surely strike that Seimeigakure would make in the exam, she said the opportunity was too good to pass up. How can I refuse when she says it like that and knows how to persuade me? Seimeigakure taught her too well, and she knows how to work as a team with Anko. I'm not complaining. And after delivering some jars of good and expensive shaku, undoubtedly stolen from some Konoha warehouse, to Tsunade, she got the seals to unlock the security. Who knows how many things she'll bring with her when she finishes looting during the attack. On another side note, Asuma won't survive after that day. There aren't many reasons since we have to kill some from Konoha, I might as well take out the guy I don't like and who tried to flirt with Pakura last Wednesday night while he was drunk. It's nothing personal, well, actually, it is. Also, Anko was able to interact enough with Ui to confirm to me that she wasn't pregnant, so the situation that happened with Haiden won't be repeated. Kurane deserves something much better than, well, Asuma. How many years has she been anchored and indecisive with that man? POV Sarutobi Hiruzen. Denso, I am the Hokage. You will regret this, Saru. I can't help but take a puff from my favorite pipe as my old friend leaves my office furious, denying him the ability to take action against the Seimeigakure guests as long as they remain within the village. Although I also want to do it, it's not prudent for the village's stability. Let the Chunin exams proceed peacefully and send some squads of Jonin to eliminate them when they leave our walls, with those kunoichis, it's the minimum force necessary. Where the hell is Jiraya when I need him? Still, I feel uneasy about Seimeikage's movement, how did he manage to extract Danzo's eye so quickly without giving anyone time to react? It's not space-time ninjutsu, I'm sure of that. But can a human be so fast without using chakra? Itake was right, he's a master at masking his chakra. I had him right in front of me, and I tried to sense it during the conversations and afterward, but it was as if he wasn't there. And Danzo's understandable anger doesn't absolve him of the guilt of not explaining to me why he has Shisui's eye. After a special psychological review, I can be sure I haven't fallen victim to the technique, but I still want to know who he wanted to use that technique on. Itaki, perhaps? It's always a dagger hanging over our heads as long as we have to take care of his little brother. The positive part of all this is that Seimeikage had no idea of the abilities that Sharingan held, otherwise, he wouldn't have destroyed it. Better destroyed than in the wrong hands. As for the Uzumaki scrolls, I had to make concessions even if I didn't want to. They have an adult woman who will know if we really touched anything, so I could only be honest and send almost everything after the copies were made. I just kept 5 scrolls, including the seal for the village barrier, learn the adamant chains, and other critical techniques that I don't want to leave the village. But it's too dangerous to leave them like this, so after adding those techniques to the seal scroll, I destroyed the originals. This way, if they come asking if I have more, I can be honest physiologically speaking and say that we don't have any more Uzumaki scrolls. Because the seal scroll isn't one, although the techniques inside are Uzumaki. A little trick my teacher Tobirama taught me so many years ago. As for the S-rank techniques, one is defective, and the other is almost impossible to use if you don't have a very specific talent for space-time ninjutsu. I'm more annoyed with Anko and Tsunade. I can't believe they really integrated so naturally into another village. And what about the Will of Fire? When I sent the Jonin to hunt the Seimeigakure members, I have to bring both back. Tsunade will get a lesson to make her reflect, and Anko will be handed over to the torture department to extract all useful information. I want to know how the hell they managed to hide from us for so many years. Quick question, apart from Sakura, is there any other character in the series with pink hair?
Thanks for listening.